Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Movie Crusaders. My name is Sean Waskrug. With me is my Weekend Crusaders co-star, Brian Michaels, and we are talking about the most disappointing and worst films of the year. It's officially New Year's, so if you hear some banging going on behind me, it's because my neighbors are shooting off fireworks because they're dumbasses. But that's neither here nor there. We're basically, this is what we do. Last year, I think we did the same thing. We're like, hey, everyone's asleep because it's New Year's. Let's shoot videos. And nonetheless, that's what we're doing. So we are talking about most disappointing and worst films of the year. Now, granted, Brian and I have said this numerous times. We actively don't go out and try to watch the movies that look like shit. We really don't. So I'm sure 90% of our list is like, those were the worst movies of the year. We get that, but we didn't go out and try and see. I'm trying to think of some really, really shitty films that we avoided.
I don't even know, because like you, as movies, I'm just like, I'm not even gonna bother seeing that one.
Yeah, like
this is the worst of the films we've seen.
Exactly. Like, we try to avoid the really, really shitty movies, like The Protege. That one popped in my head, which I think you went and saw.
That was decent, actually. Yeah.
I'm not saying that's one of the worst ones, but it's one of the ones I was like, I don't care about. Yeah. So this list is probably gonna piss off a few people, but you know what? It's our list. If you don't like it, you can make your own list too. But we're going to actually start off with our worst films of the year, and then we're gonna finish with most disappointing, because our most disappointing is not necessarily the worst films of the year. These are the movies that we were excited for. And this doesn't mean that we didn't like them by any means. It just meant that they didn't hit the expectations that we had for these films. They could still be rated very, very highly by us, but for some reason they just didn't hit the mark, and that's why they're a disappointment. But the worst, these are definitely the worst reviewed films of the year. Now, anyone who's watched my channel, if you guys have been paying attention to my reviews, you guys are probably gonna have a good idea what my list is. Because a lot of these movies have been watched in the last 2 weeks. Brian's list, Brian watches a lot of other movies that I haven't checked out, so I'm really intrigued by Brian's list. I'm gonna go ahead and get my honorable mentions out of the way, and then we'll go to Brian's. Do you have any honorable mentions or no?
I didn't do honorable mentions for this list.
Okay, so you just have your top 10.
Yeah.
All right, so my honorable mentions, I've got 3. One of these I know Brian liked. So he's not, but I think he actively knows I don't like this film, and that is Dear Evan Hansen. Dear Evan Hansen, that movie, I was genuinely excited to see it. I was real intrigued with Ben Platt and just the cast and what the story was, but little did I know that this was basically Guilt Trip the movie, or Manipulation the movie, the musical. And as I was watching this movie, I was just like, they are trying to manipulate the hell out of me to care about this person who's really not a good person deep down. Plus Ben Platt's his makeup or whatever he had on his face was distracting as hell, because apparently they don't think that Ben Platt as a normal human being looks young enough to be in high school. But let's throw a bunch of shit.
And that didn't help.
Yeah, let's throw a bunch of shit on his face and make him look like Jesse Eisenberg and go, that works. He's like, no, it doesn't work at all. I know you actually liked the movie, so I know this wasn't in your...
I won't bother retorting here, because we're going to talk about that in a different video.
In a different video, or different later on in the show?
No, a different video.
Oh, okay. My next one is one that I literally just got done reviewing today, and that's The Kingsman. We literally just talked about this before we hopped on the video. I think Brian's in agreement. We both really loved the first Kingsman film, and I think we were both fine with the Golden Circle. This movie is not a Kingsman movie. It's not. It's a dull, no fun, relatively boring film, which was shocking that Matthew Vaughn directed this film. It's not enjoyable at all. It was a slog to get through, and it was only 2 hours and 8 minutes, but it felt like it was 4 hours long. It really felt like a long time.
Yeah, there's a couple fun moments in there, but they're so few and far between. And like you said, it feels nothing like a Kingsman movie.
No.
And it's not on my worst or even honorable mention, but it's not good. It's like, I don't know if this is one you're going to talk about later, but that and The Matrix I saw within a week, and I had the same feeling about both of them. And they're not the worst movies of the year, but oh man, they were just like,
sir, we will definitely be talking about Matrix.
Okay.
We will definitely be talking about The Matrix in this video. And my last honorable mention, this was on my worst list for pretty much since I had seen it, but it got bumped out literally because of the last week of movies that I've watched. And that is Space Jam: A New Legacy. Space Jam, is that on your list?
No, actually, that's one that I never watched.
Oh, it's like you actively avoided it.
Well, there's one I thought, I'll probably see it at some point, especially if it's on HBO Max. But then I heard nothing good about it, so I'm like, I'm good.
That's the thing, is that there is some decent parts in this movie. There are some funny jokes in this movie. But here's the thing. LeBron James, I've seen him act well, like in Trainwreck and other things. Like, I'm not saying he's a phenomenal actor, but he can at least do better than what Michael Jordan did in the first Space Jam movie. Like, he can actually put together lines of dialogue and emote emotion and stuff like that. Apparently, he forgot how to do that in this film because he's delivering lines as dry as Michael Jordan did in the first Space Jam film. And then it's basically, it felt like they're like, hey, you remember Ready Player One? A lot of people like that shit. So let's do that, but let's have it be a Space Jam movie. Let's
only use Warner Brothers properties.
Yeah, all these Warner Brothers properties, but let's not even have Warner Brothers properties. Let's have cosplayers dressed like Warner Brothers properties and throw them in the crowd so they're so distracting that you're not paying attention to the actual basketball game in the movie. I felt bad for Don Cheadle because Don Cheadle is really giving it his all in this movie. He's trying.
You mean Algae Rhythm?
Algae Rhythm. He's trying so hard to be the bad guy. He looks like he's actually having a good time. But the basketball is not even a fucking basketball game. It's like a knockoff douchebaggery version of NBA Jam where the points really don't matter and it's not really a basketball game. It's all about doing tricks and stupid stuff that is like, this is not Space Jam. This is some generically stupid basketball. It's not even basketball. Let's just say that. They're on a basketball court. They're playing with basketballs, but it's not a fucking basketball game. I hated this movie so damn much. And I felt bad because the Looney Tunes haven't been around in a while. And this is what we got with them. And I felt really, really bad. Like Zendaya as the little bunny, I thought was really good. But yeah, no, Space Jam New Legacy was horrible. But those were my honorable mentions. Let's go ahead and go to Brian. Brian, what was your number 10 worst movie of the year? Now, we are going to do this like we did in our last episode of Weekend Crusaders. If he says something that I have ranked higher or vice versa, then we're going to wait and talk about that movie until we get to that person's higher number. So if his number 10 is something that's already on my list, we're just going to move forward and we'll talk about it later. So go ahead with your number 10.
The 10th worst movie, in my opinion, that I saw this year was Venom: Let There Be Carnage.
Not on my list. It was right there. It was right on the honorable mentions, but it did not hit. I'm going to be talking about it later, but not right now. So let's go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was not a giant fan of the first Venom. I didn't hate it, but I was like, okay, whatever. It is what it is. The problem is in this movie is like they apparently thought, oh, people really liked the odd couple relationship between Eddie and Venom, that let's just lean way into that. Let's just make the whole movie like a buddy comedy, basically. And it was annoying and it was stupid and it wasn't funny. And then you bring in Carnage, which I know you love Carnage, and I know you have a lot more to say on this. And you'll probably talk about it in the other part of the video.
Yeah.
But it's just, I've never had an attachment to either one of these characters. But just watching this, I was like, this is the character everybody's so crazy about? Clearly it's not being done right because it's doing nothing for me. And then the fight scenes are just, black blob versus red blob, and you can't even tell what's going on. And then you have Woody Harrelson and Naomi Harris, all these people who are good actors, and I like them in a lot of other stuff, and they're just like wasted in this movie. And then there's the end credits, which enough time has passed. I hated the fact of where I thought they were going to go with that, and then it turns out that it was all for nothing and didn't even make sense anyway. So it's just like everything about this movie.
In hindsight, yeah.
So while I went into this movie with no expectations, so I'm like, whatever. I wasn't a huge fan of the first one, but I'll watch it. I still just watched this like, wow, this didn't even live up to the first movie in my low expectations. So it was pretty bad.
Part of me is wondering if I should just talk about it now and get it out of the way, or if I should just wait until we get to the other.
If it's not on your worst, let's wait.
Okay. All right. We'll wait. My number 10 is something that I watched here in the past week, and you guys saw it on one of my massive review videos, and that is Rumble.
I have not seen that.
No, I didn't think you would. But so Rumble was a movie that was going to be on my most anticipated for 2022 because I thought it came out next year. But then it just dropped like mid-November or mid-December on Paramount
wasn't it?
Plus,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh well, shit, okay, I'll watch it because literally it's a pro wrestling movie with monsters. So, sure, sign me up. That sounds
That sounds
awesome.
perfect for Sean. Yeah.
Yeah, starring Will Arnett and what's her name? Guinevere. What's her name? She's on Miracle Workers, and she was in the Broken Hearts Gallery last year. Really like her.
Oh, I don't know her name. I'll look it up. You keep talking.
Yeah, but it's literally a pro wrestling movie with monsters. I mean, like, yeah, that sounds great. But here's
Geraldine Viswanathan.
Yeah, Geraldine, not Guinevere. Guinevere's stuck in my head because of the Kingsman.
Okay.
But yeah, I like Terry Crews is in it, and oh god, Tony Danza is in it too. He's got a small part. Like definitely not people I dislike, but this movie was. I want to say it's an epic disappointment, but it basically kind of felt like a straight to DVD movie that WWE Studios put out, but it wasn't made by WWE Studios. But yet it had like WWE trademarks, like you'd see like Raw and SmackDown and like stuff in the background, and like they would randomly drop random like music, like wrestlers' entrance music in the film that had nothing to do with the characters happening on screen. They had some WWE wrestlers doing voice work in the film, but yet they monsterfied their voices enough that you could not really tell that they were them. So what was the point? Then they had one monster clearly trying to be Rey Mysterio, but they didn't want to like actually have Rey Mysterio in the movie, but he had like the mask and Rey Mysterio's like theme song. He was doing Rey Mysterio moves. It was the WWE aesthetics that they had in the film that brought the film down for me, which is shocking because it's a pro wrestling movie. But the actual WWE parts being forced in the film is what made the film bad. Had they just let it be its own thing, granted a pro wrestling movie about monsters, it was basically being Real Steel, but without the father-son dynamic story. Is, monsters kind of showed up on Earth, and instead of destroying the Earth, they decided, hey, let's be used as entertainment and wrestle each other and have humans kind of coach us and be our bosses. That's literally how the movie. What's that?
So Pokemon?
Basically, for the most part. That's the movie, but the problem is that it's you've seen this story 1,000 times before, way done better, over and over and over and over again, better. And the other part too is Will Arnett's doing his best Seth Rogen impression. There's never a part in this film where I felt like that's Will Arnett. I was like, we sure this isn't Seth Rogen? Which, I mean, granted, we make the same joke with it's a Big Mouth, where the hormone monster sounds like Will Arnett, but it's Nick Kroll. This is the same thing. It sounds like Seth Rogen, but it's Will Arnett. And it's not funny. It's not fun. It's not enjoyable. Like, it's just a bland attempt at, I think, WWE trying to get some extra properties in there, but it's not done well enough or good enough for you to enjoy it. Kids will like it. I'm sure if you stick a kid who's a fan of pro wrestling in front of it, they're going to love this movie. But yeah, this movie was just sucked.
Like I said, I was looking at the cast that's in it, and it looks like it got a good voice cast. But I was looking at the studios behind it. You have Paramount Animation, who hasn't really done much of anything. Yeah. WWE Studios was part of it, and then Walden Media, who is kind of like the slightly not as religious version of like kind of not really. They do a lot of family films, although they aren't quite faith-based, but they kind of lean that direction. Just a weird amalgam of companies.
Well, that and hands down one of the worst parts of the film is they let Stephen A. Smith be a character in the film, and they basically let Stephen A. Smith be Stephen A. Smith, which that was the worst possible thing you could do. Anyone who knows who Stephen A. Smith is, don't let him go full Stephen A. Smith, and they let him go full Stephen A. Smith. For you people who don't know what that means, look him up and watch like a 5-minute video of him. You'll understand. But yeah, I was about 3/4 of the way through this movie, and I'm like, I am not enjoying myself. I am not having fun watching this film. Like, that sucks. We're about ready to go into the main event or the big finale, and I'm like, I could give a rat's ass what's going on in this film. So that's why Rumble was my number 10. What was your number 9?
Number 9 is a movie that you would have thought that I would already hate. Just I wouldn't even watch it because it looked like an A24 film, but it wasn't actually A24. And that is The Night House.
I never saw it, so I have no idea.
So this is.
I heard good things though,
and some people loved it. You're gonna find a lot of things on my worst list and my disappointed list. Some of it's just, might be good movies, just not my kind of thing.
Some at least one or two of my worst is on some people's best.
Oh yeah. So I mean, it stars Rebecca Hall, which right now makes it your favorite movie because you love Rebecca Hall.
I'm out.
And everybody's talking, oh, she should get Oscar nominated for this and everything. It's like, not quite so much. But I went to see this movie because the trailers look good. And obviously, there's a lot of times trailers don't fully represent a movie. But I'm like, it looks intriguing as a horror movie. And it was during that time with like not a lot was coming out. So I'm like, I'll go see it. Use one of my A-list slots for it.
Yeah.
And it started off with little promise. And then it just kind of took these turns where I'm like, I didn't care about anything that was happening in the movie. I kind of wanted her to die at times.
I mean, it's Rebecca Hall. She's a human equivalent of watching wallpaper dry. So,
and it was one of those things like the audience figures out what's going on like an hour before the people in the movie do, and it's just like, okay, come on, get on with it already. And it definitely kind of had that kind of A24 vibe to it, even though it wasn't A24. Which, as anybody who knows me, those are not the kind of movies for me. There's an audience for those. I'm not in it.
Ryan is not an A24.
So yeah, I mean, I don't have a whole lot to want to say about this movie except to say that it was a horror movie that was not scary. It was not even intriguing. I was just bored.
Yeah, that one's on Netflix, right? Is it on Netflix?
Well, it came out in theaters. I don't know if it's on Netflix now.
There's so many movies called with house in the title that's come out.
It was not a Netflix movie, if that's what you mean.
Okay, like there's so many movies with house in the title that's come out in like the last year that's like horror, especially on Netflix. That part of me was thinking that was one of them. But yeah, Rebecca Hall's in it. I'm immediately nope, I'm out. Like you might as well say,
right at that point.
Could you imagine a movie with her and Parker Posey in it and just go like, Sean, I want you to watch a movie. No, F you. That's not
what you've done. You just willed that into existence. It's going to happen.
I will never see that film.
And it's going to be like the next sequel in some franchise you love.
Oh, God. Then they are immediately going to die. My number 9 is a film. It's a sequel of a film that came out, I believe it was in 2018 or 2019. I think it was 2019. That I actually quite enjoyed until the last 5 minutes. And so this was the sequel. I don't hate the movie. It's just, at the end of the day, it's just not a good movie compared to everything else I've seen. And that's Escape Room Tournament of Champions.
I have that higher up on my list.
Oh, so we're going to be talking about it later.
Yeah.
Okay. What is this, a Tournament of Champions? so we're going to move on then. I'll go to my number 8. My number 8, also a movie that I saw recently, and it's part of one of my massive review videos, and that is Netflix, The Unforgivable.
Did not watch that one.
Okay. Like I said, it's not a bad movie. Here's my problem with Unforgivable. Like I said, it's the movie with Sandra Bullock. She's been in jail for 20 years because she killed a cop, and she just got released, and hasn't seen her little sister obviously since she's been in jail, and her little sister went into the system, and she's living with an adoptive family, and Sandra Bullock's trying to find her sister, and everyone's trying to keep her away from her. That's the crux of this film. But here's the problem is that this movie would have been great if it was like one of those like 6 to 8 episode Netflix miniseries, because there's a lot of good ideas in the movie, but they're not given enough time to develop, that a lot of the good ideas just kind of stop and they move on to with the main plot. I'm like, well, okay, you had a good storyline going here, and then you just kind of abandoned it. And then you have these two characters that just randomly show up, and you're supposed to care about them, but you really don't give a flying fuck about them, but they're overtaking the main plot. And there's just a lot of loose strings in this film, and none of them really amount to anything because there's not given enough time to develop and grow into a storyline that fully matters. And that's the main problem with Unforgivable. Is like there's a lot of good ideas, but just not enough time to do it. And had they done this as a limited series, like 6-8 episode arc, I feel like those storylines would have been really well done. Kind of like Mayor of Easttown or Eastwood. It was on HBO this year with Kate Winslet. That was fantastic because it had enough room to breathe and do its own stories, and it was a great show. This could have been that, but instead they try to force it into a 2-hour movie, and at the end of it, you just didn't really give a crap about it. And even at the point, it's like you shouldn't be rooting necessarily for Sandra Bullock, but then it's like, well, it's Sandra Bullock. I mean, you're not going to root against Sandra Bullock, you know? But and then they throw this twist in at the end, which I'm like, oh, F you. This twist is stupid. Like, there's no need for this twist. And then, like, John Bernthal has a storyline that actually is going somewhere, and then he drops this, like, I wouldn't say a bombshell or anything, but he drops this important character development of his character. They're like, oh, okay, I'm excited to see where this goes, and then you don't see him ever again the rest of the movie. And then Viola Davis is there, and she's really there just to kind of be a judgmental bitch for like 3 scenes. And then she finally has this confrontation with Sandra Bullock, and like that's her Oscar performance like moment. And then all of a sudden her character just like, okay, I guess I'm in the movie now. It's like, but the movie's got 10 minutes left. It's kind of a little late there, Viola. It's just, had it been a show, they probably would have had it like, you know, an episode dedicated to Viola Davis to make her character actually matter. But instead, every time she was on screen, I was just like, you're judgmental. Shut up. Like this isn't about you kind of thing. But yeah, it was just kind of a mess. It just not good enough of a cohesive film to be enjoyable. So that's why it was number 8 on my list. What was your number 8?
Number 8 on my list is actually one that I was looking forward to. I thought this could be like one of my best surprises of the year, but it was not. And that was Nicolas Cage movie, Prisoners of the Ghostland.
I remember, like, I was really excited to check this out, and you're like, don't do it. And I was like, okay, I won't. And then I never thought about it again. Because it kind of reminded me of like almost like a Escape from New York, Escape from LA kind of film.
Mm-hmm.
Was it not that?
Well, the problem, so Nicolas Cage, everyone knows Nicolas Cage has fallen into this part of his career where he's basically just cashing in a lot of paychecks. It's like 80-90% of his movies go straight to video. He pumps out like 6 of them a year.
There's literally a movie that's coming out next year that kind of
that. Yeah, but it's like, obviously he has, you know, money problems and things like that, so he's just taking work wherever he can get it because he's not getting cast like these big starring roles anymore. So, but once in a while a good one sneaks through. You're like, hey, that was actually a pretty good movie. And this one, the trailer came out, and it looked so intriguing. It was different. It was atmospheric. It kind of had a cool look to it. It's got like kind of a sci-fi and samurais and Old West kind of look all together. And the director who did this is a Japanese. I apologize if I'm wrong. He's an Asian director. He did a movie called Why Don't You Play in Hell, which is just bonkers, and it's cool. It's got, you know, guns and ninjas and samurais, and it's weird, but I really loved it. So I thought, put that and Nicolas Cage together, you're gonna have a great movie. It really wasn't. This is a movie that was really big on, it created a cool look to it, a cool aesthetic, cool atmosphere, you know, in their whole like samurai western town thing they had going on, which they never really explain what's going on in this place because it kind of doesn't seem like a real place. It's kind of very surreal. So the look and the atmosphere they make is really cool. But the problem is, it's like the movie and the plot and everything is completely nonsensical. You have no idea what's going on, and things that you think are going to get resolved never do, and you don't even really understand anybody's motivations, things like that. You got Sophia Boutella, and she's in it, but she's like not even in it that much, and when she is, she's completely wasted. And I don't know why she's doing these straight-to-video movies, because I've always liked her and everything I've seen her pop up in. But yeah, this is just a movie that it looked cool, but the movie was just ugh.
Not the last time we'll be talking about Nick Cage. Let's just say that. Oh no, definitely not the last time we'll be talking about Nick Cage today on this episode. But that was, what was it called again?
Prisoners of Ghostland. Of the Ghostland.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was your number 7?
My number 7 is a movie that I'm betting most people have never even heard of. It's called Zone 414 or 414.
Nope, never heard
This is a movie. I watched a lot of these things that like went straight to like VOD this year. And I debated whether or not to include them, but I'm like, hey, they're 2021 movies and I watched them. They count.
You did, and before the video, he's like, do you just want to do mainstream? Or I was like, I'm doing everything that I've watched this year. So do what you want to do.
So this is a movie. It stars Guy Pearce. It also has Travis Fimmel, who you might know from Vikings.
I love them.
Yeah, and then mostly a bunch of other unknowns for the most part. But this is a movie that another one where the description of the movie sounded cool, and the trailer I watched, it was at least intriguing enough to watch it. But it really amounted to nothing more than a total Blade Runner. It's like if you took Blade Runner but made it on like a VOD budget and then cut that budget in half and cast in a whole bunch of people who you've never heard of, and you basically have this movie because he plays like a private investigator, and he's hired by this colony's creator to find his missing daughter. But then there's like these state-of-the-art robots who are basically humans walking everywhere. You're just kind of like in Blade Runner, and it tries to be this. The noir thing we've talked about before is very hit and miss.
Yeah.
And this thing totally tries to do that noir thing with the futuristic sci-fi, much like Blade Runner did, and it doesn't work. This is what you get if you tried to make Blade Runner and did everything completely wrong.
Guy Pearce is starting to rise up the ranks of, if he's in the movie, I know it's not going to be a good movie, because I'm not actively.
He's showing up in a lot of these straight to VOD movies too. There's like this school of acting that this group of people that are just cashing paychecks, and I'm actually going to talk about this in a later one. It's just, I feel like maybe you're getting a paycheck, but is it worth destroying your legacy? Because I mean, he was a great actor at one.
Yeah, I honestly can't remember the last good Guy Pearce movie I've seen.
Yeah,
I mean, like, granted, he's in Iron Man 3, but he's the worst. Well, with Rebecca Hall, the worst parts of Iron Man 3. I haven't trusted Guy Pearce since Time Machine came out. Let's just say that. All right, so going on to what was called, Zone 143?
Zone 414.
414. Okay. Going to my number 7. This was a movie that I know Brian actively was like, I am not fucking watching that movie. I was like, all right, well, I will for the channel. And that is Tom and Jerry.
Oh, no.
Tom and Jerry. I liked watching Tom and Jerry when I was a kid. I had fun watching that, just like I had fun watching Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner. This movie, it's one of those things where this is not actively that bad of a film, but then I feel like they got in their own way of like, oh, this is a kid's movie, so we got to throw in this extra kid crap. And that's when I think it's like, oh, if you just kind of stayed true to the characters, this probably would have been okay. You got Chloe Grace Moretz, who I think she did a solid job in the film. I think she did a decent job working at having to interact with Tom and Jerry, who obviously aren't there. I think she did a solid job, but there are certain times where you can tell that her eyesight is not lined up with where like Tom is, and so it's like she's looking like here.
Which, if you're gonna do animation live action hybrid, that's kind of one of the main.
Oh yeah, but there's like one specific scene where she's talking to him in the hallway, and like you're like, yeah, she's totally not looking at the right marker. It's like, but sometimes you gotta let that shit go. But then there's times like you could have just redone the scene. But there's some humor in there. I mean, it's not god awful or anything like that, but you have like. They have to throw like rapping pigeons. I think they're rapping pigeons in the movie, and they pop up at least 3 times in the film. And then you have this is, once again, you throw this weird world where it's like, okay, so do they know that pets are animated? Like, do they know that pets talk? Like, is everyone like in the realm that pets are talking? Because there are times when pets talk, or some of them talk, like not Tom and Jerry, obviously, because they don't talk, but like the other animals talk, but like it's like, do humans, like I gotta know the parameters of what this world is. Do humans know that animals can talk, or is it one of those things like Homeward Bound where they're talking but humans can't hear that and they just hear maybe barking or meowing? Like they don't ever really kind of go through that, because Chloe Grace Moretz is having general conversations with Tom and Jerry. Now, granted, like I said, they're not talking back to her, but they're interacting. But then you have like the dogs are talking, the elephants are talking, the pigeons are rapping. It's just like, I kind of need to know what the parameters of the world is in this. Like, I like, it's bugging me. You know, you have this weird subplot with this whole big marriage wedding thing happening at the hotel, which is like the crux of the main story, but not really. It just kind of doesn't work. And then you have oh god, I'm blanking on his name. Louise, MCU.
Louise good.
Yeah.
Oh
my god, I'm blanking on his name. End of watching Jake Gyllenhaal.
Michael Pena.
Michael Pena. Jesus. Okay. I was like,
from Ant-Man. Okay, I was trying to figure out which. I'm like, Louise. Who's that?
You have Michael Pena, who's basically kind of being the sniveling, like hotel employee who doesn't like Chloe Grace Moretz, so he always just tries to like underhand her. You have Rob Delaney, who will also be mentioned later in this episode, who's kind of runs the hotel, but he's kind of an idiot. It just doesn't work. And then you have like this whole like high-speed chase at the end of the film, and just ultimately it's just kind of a mess. There's an okay, like we said this, like there's a good movie in there. There's an average to okay movie in there, but there's just too much crap and too much like this is a kids movie, so we gotta have like Alvin and the Chipmunks escapades and all this kind of stuff. And there's like, you didn't need all that crap. Keep it simple, stupid, and you might actually have a decent film on your hands. And instead, it was just kind of like I kind of knew what I was getting into. Like, and I knew I knew like literally when the movie started, and basically you have like Run DMC as pigeons going, "This is a story all about." I'm like, oh no, like oh crap, this is not gonna go well.
This was a movie that because I knew it was gonna be on HBO Max, and so I'm like, you know what, I'm not really interested in it, but if I hear good things about it, I'll check it out. And then I did not. So I didn't.
So yeah, you never watched it. And then I think what was I almost kind of felt like the battered wife when I was like, man, Tom and Jerry was so bad, and Brian's like, what the fuck did you expect? What did you think you were gonna see? It's like what did you think was gonna happen if you went back to him? He was gonna hit you again. I was like, okay, damn, Brian. It's like you should know better. Speaking of we should know better, my number 6, this one actively made me angry. And this is one of the movies that Brian would have loved to have watched with me, because Brian's favorite version of me is what?
Exasperated Sean.
Exasperated and just angry Sean. And this movie, my number 6, I was so pissed and angry the whole time watching this, and that's Halloween Kills.
Evil Died Tonight.
Oh my god. Is that in your top 10?
You know what? It's not in my worst movies of the year, but I could see it happening.
This movie is dog shit. It is dog shit. It is so fucking bad. And granted, I wasn't crazy about the 2018 Halloween. It was fine, but it had problems. There were some glaring problems with Halloween 2018, but it was good enough for me to go, oh, I'm intrigued with enough to see where the story is going to go. Then there's Halloween Kills. This movie is so fucking stupid. The reason why Michael Myers keeps going to Haddonfield is because everyone in this fucking town is an idiot. They're stupid and they all deserve to die. And I
believe my entire review for this was this movie features the most incompetent mob in the history of film.
There's literally a scene in the hospital where they're all chanting, "Evil dies tonight! Evil dies tonight!" And some fat, like Danny DeVito looking motherfucker comes into the building, and everyone goes, "That's Michael Myers." What? Half of these people have seen Michael Myers before. They know he's like a 7-foot-tall motherfucker.
But later on, when they do have Michael Myers, they can't finish him off. Anyway.
Let's chase the 5-foot-nothing guy through a hospital, injuring people, and clearly you hear people going, "That's not him."
They're just kind of running back and forth down the hallways. Meanwhile, it's like, she's hiding the guy in the room. Yeah, whatever.
And then you have what you were saying. The mob finally catches up to Michael, and they're all like beating on him, and they shoot him like 6 times, but no one ever goes for the fucking head. Not that it would have killed Michael, but at least go for the head, chop his head off, do something. Like they're stabbing him.
They all went to their sheds and brought their baseball bats and shovels.
Ironing boards. There was a croquet mallet.
Chainsaws, people.
Yes, axes, chainsaws, crowbars. Guns, knives.
People in this town have guns. Come on.
And there's literally one point in the film where Michael is down for the count.
Just laying there. Double tap, people.
They just stand over him like, no, you cut his fucking head off. You cut his head off. You cut his hands off. You cut his legs off. Incapacitate the guy. Yeah. Take him out. And then they let him get back up and kill all of them. And then you have the part at the end of the film where you're just like, when all of a sudden, was it Jamie Lee Curtis and
who, by the way, spends the entire movie like.
Oh yes, let's not forget that the heroine of this film, or the heroine of the series, is Jamie Lee Curtis, and they basically have her stay in a hospital bed the entire fucking film. And the one moment that she gets out of her bed, she gets knocked down by that mob and gets put back in bed. She is the main point of this whole thing. The whole point of Halloween 2018 was the showdown between Laurie and Michael, which was a good showdown. Like, it was actually really good. And this movie was like, we need to save that for part 3. But then in the crux of this whole thing, you basically go, Michael doesn't really give a shit about Laurie. Michael just wants to go home. Laurie's just was in the way. Like, he really does not care who Laurie is. Why would you do that? What? Why would you take that characteristic out of the movie? Like, what's the point of her story then going into next year's film? There's no point now. And then you have this whole thing where it's like, his fear or whatever is what makes him stronger. And then you have him somehow at the end of the film get past hundreds of people outside of his house, gets into the house, up
including
the
the
stairs.
cops. This is a crime scene at this point.
This is a crime scene. You have ambulances, you have fire trucks, you have police officers, you have reporters, you have everyone in front of his house. And he's literally across the street in front of his house. So he has to either go right through that undetected, or he's going to have to walk all the way down the street, all the way back around the back of his house, sneak in where cops are in his house, get up the stairs into his room where Judy Greer is standing, undetectable for Judy Greer to see, by the way, and then kill her. What? No.
And then stand in the front window where nobody sees him, apparently.
Yes, not to mention once again the stupidity of this town, where there's this group of mobsters who all the mobber, whatever the hell you want to call the group. They're not mobsters, definitely. But like they're dressed up in Halloween costumes. You have like the nurse who goes to shoot with a big gun, and Michael just kicks the door and she shoots herself in the face. And like you have everyone in this film.
That whole scene, and the one with the two guys, the couple. It's like
the gay couple living at Michael's house. You talking about that?
He also turned into like Jason Voorhees or somebody, where it's like staging like funny little dead people and.
I was going to touch on that, but because like yes, like he did stage people in the very very first Halloween, but he also was like he had the time to do that. Like there's literally a part in the film where he's chasing one of these older women through the park. She hides and he goes on a bridge and basically effectively walks away. She escapes. The rest of the group shows up, and then all the bodies he had just killed are like staged on like the swing sets and shit. I was like, wait, so did he come back?
And when do you have time to do all that?
Yes, did he actually come back around and go, let's hang up all these bodies? Even though I'm looking for this one person who's still hiding in the same spot. Oh, I gotta hang up this one. Let's put a Halloween mask on this one. The feng shui here looks great, and then I'm gonna leave. And it's like, when the fuck did he do that? And then the gay couple who they spent way too much time on in this film, who lives in Michael's house, he kills them and then he puts them in like a loving embrace. And it's like, fuck this movie. This movie's so fucking stupid. Yeah. And there's some people who were like, Halloween Kills was great. What did you expect? I expected a good fucking horror film.
If you want to hear everything he has to say about it, watch his review of that movie. But, yeah.
I expected a competent cast, competent writing, and unneedlessly death scenes of gore. Like his kill of was it the boyfriend? Just like, man, Michael, dude, you're a dick. It's like, it was unnecessary. But anyway, I hate that fucking movie. I think we're on your 7 or 6?
We're on my number 5. Oh, 6. I'm sorry, 6. My number 6 is a movie you probably haven't seen and most people haven't heard of. It's a Netflix movie called Good on Paper. Nope. It's a rom-com starring stand-up comedian Eliza Schlesinger. I
know who that is.
Okay, yeah. So she made a movie on Netflix, and she's a star. But it's a rom-com, but and I like most of her stand-up. She gets a little bit much at times, but I find her at least
most stand-up comedians do. But yeah.
So, but I go to see this. It's got Ryan Hansen is like the male lead in it, who played Dick Casablancas in Veronica Mars, where I mostly know him from. He's in Party Down and a bunch of other stuff too. But I like him.
Okay, I know what you're talking about now.
But basically, it's like she plays a stand-up comedian because range, and she falls in love with this guy who seems to be the perfect guy, which is Ryan Hansen. But it turns out he might just be this pathological liar. Like everything he's said about his success in his career, it's all just lies. That's essentially the plot of the movie. Her uncovering that and just trying to decide, what she considers perfect and where her life should be. There's not a whole lot to the plot of the movie. It's a rom-com. What do you want?
Ryan Hansen kind of reminds me of if Owen Wilson and Dax Shepard fucked and had a baby.
I could see that. I mean, I don't want to picture that, but I could see that. But this is a movie. I debated whether or not to put this on my worst list because I didn't go in with high expectations. You knew what
you were going in for.
Because I kind of did. But at the same time, it's like, as a romantic comedy, it kind of fails. As just a comedy, it's not all that funny. She is really quite an unlikable person in this movie, which if it's the main character of a rom-com, you kind of have to be likable, and she really isn't. She's kind of
that has been an active trend with a lot of movies I've been watching this year. There's a lot of movies where it's like, these are unlikable characters. Like I'm supposed to be rooting for these characters. Yeah. I just don't fucking like them.
Yeah. But I mean, and honestly, I would go into more detail, but I've forgotten most of this movie. I watched this thing back in, I don't even know when it was. It was June, and I honestly don't even remember a whole lot about this movie. I just remember it being a comedy that wasn't funny, and I'm just like,
Honestly, I was expecting Love Hard to pop up on your list, but apparently not.
that one wasn't great, but it's not worst of the year.
Gotcha. What was your number 5?
My number 5, we're bringing back Escape Room Tournament of Champions.
Okay, so we're back to the Tournament of Champions.
Yeah.
I liked the first Escape Room. I thought up until the last 5 minutes of that movie, I thought it was such a very good horror film, like very Saw-like without going too over the top with the Sawness. And then, of course, they completely ruined it with the last 5 minutes of the movie. But with this one, they just kind of completely abandoned the end of the first film, or they were still staging it in the second film. Basically, is what it looked like.
Yeah,
I like the cast for the most part. I mean, you got the 2 returning characters from the first movie. Holland, like in her last name, she's the redhead who feels nothing.
Holland Roden.
Yeah, Holland Roden. I love her. Anyone who watched MTV's Teen Wolf, she's fantastic in it. So when I saw her, I immediately got excited. I was like, yay, it's someone I like in this movie. The movie's just kind of eh. And then once again, they throw a twist in at the end. And to me, once again, the twist just didn't work for me. And by the time the movie ended, I was just like, it didn't have the same kind of, I don't want to say magic that the first film had, but the first film felt unique. The first film felt like something like, oh, this could actually be something. And this one just kind of felt like, let's just do this weird one. There's only one room that I think actually was like, oh, okay, this is actually pretty good, which is the acid street. To me, that was like, I was like, all right, this one's an actual, like, this is a good room. But like the beach one, I didn't care for, and like the bank one was okay, and the train station one just did not work for me whatsoever. But yeah, it's just by the time the movie ended, I was just like, I don't really care to see another one of these.
Well, the first one I was not a big fan of because it absolutely was trying to be Saw, but for the PG-13 crowd, and at the same time trying to cash in on the escape room craze that was happening at the time.
I really like I like the actors and actresses that are in the first one. That's why I think what helped me is I like Tyler Labine and Deborah. She's in Daredevil. But yeah.
So I the first one I thought was just like whatever, it was passable, but it was just like clearly just trying to be Saw for PG-13. And this one just really just did the same thing. But the problem is it was even dumber because the characters are so oblivious to everything. Like every single thing in this movie, everyone in the audience figured out 10 minutes before the people in this audience. This is another trend we're finding for this year. But especially for something like for this escape room where they're supposed to be figuring out puzzles and everyone else like, yeah, we kind of guessed that 10 minutes ago. It kind of ruins the suspense of the moment. You got the worst part of the original, which was the ending, which is like trying to set up some bigger world of conspiracy. It's like they continue that here with another cliffhanger ending. And if you think, and none of the stuff they do makes sense, because if you try to believe that they set up everything, that people would be in this place at this time and on this plane, there's no way all this stuff could work. But
there's way too many moving, and at the end of the film, there's way too many moving parts at the end for it to have just like, that was it. Like, oh, everyone was in on it kind of thing. It was like, no.
Yeah.
No.
But and you're talking about the cast, like the lead Taylor Russell. I like her. She was in one of my best surprises of last year with that Words on Bathroom Walls. I really liked the movie she was in. Logan Miller. I think he's a funny guy. I liked him. We watched Scout's Guide to the Apocalypse. I liked him in that.
He was also a hated character, but he did a good job in Love, Simon. He wasn't a likable character by any means, but he did his job as an actor in that film.
Yes, I mean the actors and actresses I actually didn't have a problem with, but yeah, it was just the fact that the movie, it wasn't interesting, it wasn't exciting, it wasn't nearly as imaginative. Like I honestly don't remember a lot of the individual escape rooms, although I should, because basically they showed everything in the trailers. But I just, every time they got into another room, it's kind of like, oh, that's going to happen. That's, yep, sure enough, that's what happens. I was just, yeah.
Yeah, it just, like, at least with the first one, some of the characters were unlikable, or they did unlikable things. We're like, all right, it's fine that they died. In this one, no one's really unlikable. Stupid, yes. Unlikable.
Well, the funny thing is they're completely stupid, but then they make these completely ridiculously unbelievable leaps in logic. Like, oh, well, I bet you have to do this and this and this. Like, there's no way they would have guessed how to do
Oh,
these.
yeah. They all, like, you can't be stupid for 8 minutes and then in
But
the
you
last
can
30
immediately
seconds,
figure out the puzzle.
be
Yeah.
like, I got it. It's like, no, you have to have, like, been like this the whole way through for us to believe it. Because especially if these are all the champions. It's like, well,
Yeah,
no,
right.
you should already been on the ball for this.
Yeah.
Like, at least in the first scene or two, like, they seem like, okay, we've been through this, we know. But then it's like they got dumber as the movie went on. And yeah, it's just like, it's not a bad movie for what it is. It's just not a good movie either.
Yeah.
Going to my number 5. This was a movie. It's a sequel. I was not a fan of the first one, which is weird because I love the cast. Same thing with this one. I love the cast, but this movie felt lazy and uninspired, and I felt like no one in the movie except for one person really wanted to be there, and that was Hitman's Bodyguard. I was not a fan of Hitman's Bodyguard. I didn't find it fun at all. Like, you had the occasional scenes with Ryan Reynolds and Samuel L. Jackson that were funny, but ultimately I didn't think the movie worked. So knowing that they were making a sequel about Salma Hayek's character, I was just like, do we have to? Like, do we? I don't think we need to do this. And that was the problem with the movie, is that she's overacting to the nth degree in this film. Like, every part of her dialogue is her screaming or profanity or stuff like that, which not necessarily is a bad thing. But the problem is like, I have never seen Ryan Reynolds give less of a fuck in a movie. Like, he is so just like, I'm here to collect a paycheck. Like, his emotional character through this whole film is just like, yeah, okay, I don't like this. I don't like the situation. How dare you put Plus, he should have died like 8 times in the movie. The dude's basically a cartoon character in this film. He gets flattened, he gets run over, he gets shot like 8 times, and he keeps getting up and running around and fighting. And it's just like, it's unbelievable. And then you have Samuel Jackson, who is, like you said, Samuel Jackson usually knows what movie he's in, but even he didn't even seem like he was having a fun time in this film. And yeah, I did not chuckle once in this movie. I didn't enjoy the action sequences. I thought they were overly long, like way too many chase sequences. And by the end of this movie, I was just like, this movie didn't need to be made. It really didn't. I felt bad for everyone in this film. There were certain times when Salma Hayek was actually quiet, or not. I don't want to say quiet, but like when she was talking with a normal voice, like calm. Those were some of her best scenes in the movie, because the dialogue, A, you can understand what she was saying, but B, were some of the better acting of her in this film. But she only does that like maybe for 3 minutes of this movie, and it's her just going blah, 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 and it's just like, and Ryan Reynolds just reacting to it, and it's just, yeah, it just didn't work for me. I really, really disliked this film.
Yeah. I'll give you my thoughts on it.
I know you saw it.
I'll give you my thoughts about it in the second half of this video.
Gotcha. Okay then. So we're gonna go ahead and go to my 4. It's Matrix Resurrections. I hated this movie. I really hated this movie. It's so up its own ass with trying to be like ungodly meta on top of meta, spread some more meta on it, and we're so cool that we're so aware of ourselves. Like, shut the fuck up. Like, seriously, shut up. This movie is so pointless and stupid. Like, you had potential of something there by like, and I saw this pitch. I'll say it's from the Real Rejects. Greg Abba goes, you know what would have been a cool story plot is you could have kept it this way, but instead of Tom, Tom Anderson, it could have been Keanu being Keanu. And the Matrix being real, and Keanu being a character in the Matrix, and him not realizing that maybe that there was a real Matrix out there, and bring him into it. That he's actually Neo, but it's Neo in the Matrix as Keanu Reeves. That he's like, well, yeah, I acted in these movies. I know what this movie is. And like, no, this is fucking real. And done that would have been more intriguing than Mr. Anderson created a video game world, and we got to create another video game world, but then we're going to abandon that because we're going to go to the Matrix. But hey, now that we're in the Matrix, let's just redo the same fucking scenes that we did in the first film. Not only are we going to redo the same damn scenes, we're going to show you the original scenes on a screen as we're redoing that said scene. Also, let's bring back loved characters like Morpheus and Agent Smith, cast different people to play them, and then not really do anything about them, and have them actually not even perform nearly as well as the original performances. Let's have this one story that's happening in the real world with this robot civil war that actually is somewhat intriguing, but we're just going to skim over that. And let's make it all be about that he just really has to get the Trinity, because it's Trinity. And it's just it's poorly edited. There's literally a scene when, oh god, what's the French dude's name? The Monteclair, whatever.
The actor or the character?
The character.
It's the Merovingian.
Yeah. He shows up. Oh my god, that was the most annoying fucking performance of this entire film. But there's literally a
he was there for no reason to be like, "Ooh, he's from the other movie."
Exactly. Exactly. That's 100% a pitch meeting thing. He's there just to yell like a crazy dude, but there's literally a scene where he is yelling and the camera's facing behind his head as he's yelling at them. If you look past his head and you watch the fight scene happening in front of him, they're just going. They're not fighting because they know they're not technically being taped. But yes, you are, because we're in a fucking HD 4K world. We can see everything, and we can see when you're all just standing there slow fighting, waiting for the camera to get back on you so you can really fight. Not to mention, Keanu Reeves is fucking wasted in this film. He's basically a Jedi with force push every 5 fucking seconds. This movie's dog shit. It's dog shit. Not to mention, Neil Patrick Harris is supposed to be like the architect, but he's called the analyst in this film. But he just sounds like Barney from How I Met Your Mother, just trying to put on a con to have sex with somebody. Which, I love Neil Patrick Harris, and I love Barney, but I'm sorry, I don't buy him as this overly clever analyst who can outsmart Neo and Trinity, because it just sounds like Barney's trying to fuck somebody and just trying to sound like he's smart. This movie fails in every aspect for me. This movie should never have happened. This movie should never have came back around. To me, it tarnishes the Matrix series. Not that the second or 2 and 3 were really that great of films, but it made me almost kind of not want to just go back and watch the first film, because it's just like, man, what did you guys do? You ruined this. And this movie's fucking shit. It is shit. Brian, your take.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is The Matrix never should have had a second movie. It should have been one movie. It was amazing. They should have stopped there. A lot of people agree with that, but 2 and 3 have their defenders, but whatever. This one, I didn't hate as much too. It's not on my worst of list. It would have made my disappointed list if I had higher expectations, but I didn't have high expectations going into it. So it's kind of like, whatever, they're going to make it, whatever. The whole thing with the story behind it, with it, they basically had made Neo forget that he was the one, that this was real, and they basically have made him believe that this is a video game series that he made, and that's why he remembers all this stuff. It's because from the game. I kind of thought
it on the previous films in the game.
Well, I kind of thought, I mean, that could be a creative angle. I mean, I could see them doing that, trying to make him think he imagined the whole thing, or that it was all part of this video game, and like that could be an angle with it. But then, first of all, the minute they mentioned Warner Brothers, you're just like, oh my god, the eye rolls, the entire like, oh, Warner Brothers making us do it, and it's like, and especially when you find out Lana Wachowski basically said that they told me if I don't do it, they're going to make it without me, so I might as well be involved and get it done. It's like. So basically, I'm not sure if she made this movie basically as a fuck you, like, fine, I'm going to make it, but I'm going to call you out for, the fact that you were going to make this movie with or without me, or if she actually thought this was a good angle to go with it. I don't know. But anyway, the whole meta thing, okay idea, really badly executed. They leaned way too far into the Neo Trinity love story, which is always, I thought, was the weakest part of the series. The action in this movie is completely dull, which in the Matrix, they're known for their action scenes, for it to be dull. And a lot of it's because Keanu, instead of doing cool, kung fu, and we know he still can, we've seen John Wick movies, but now he's just doing the force push. That new people, Jessica Henwick, I like. Yahya Abdul-Mateen, I like him. They're both kind of wasted in this movie.
I love Jonathan Goff. I love Yahya. I love Henwick. Yeah. I don't like them in this movie.
Yeah.
Like Goff. If you told me Goff and Yahya were not Morpheus and Mr. Smith, I probably wouldn't have had a problem with their characters in the movie because like, oh yeah, they're doing these new characters. That's cool. But then you tell me, no, that's Agent Smith and that is Morpheus. And I'm like, no, fuck you.
Right. Like Jessica Henwick. She's a new character. She's not trying to be a reboot of a character. And you're like, hey, she's actually the best character in the movie, kind of.
She's basically Trinity B. She's doing everything that Trinity did in the first film.
Well, and then there's the whole thing with the end where suddenly, you know, oh, no, Trinity is the one and she has the powers. I'm just like, okay.
Not to mention the whole first like 10 minutes of the movie where they basically reenacted the first film.
Yeah.
Opening number, but it wasn't Trinity. So you're like, what the fuck are we watching?
Well, at first, I'm like, I thought they were keeping her in shadows. I'm like, oh, they're trying to redo the scene like someone else is watching it. So maybe they're like gonna CG on her face. I'm like, oh no, I guess they just got a different actress to play her. But I'm like, oh no, wait, now it's I don't know. I'm not going to give it any more thought. You've talked about it in your review, but this
not to mention hands down one of the worst after like post-credit scenes of the year, where you brought back the idiot like gaming guys who try to talk all philosophically about the Matrix. It's supposed to be making fun of the fans who had over theorized the Matrix, and they had them come back and talk for another 30 seconds. And I just want someone to come in and shoot them all in the face. But what boggles my mind is people who are so carrying such a fucking torch for this film, going, it's revolutionary, it's beautiful, it's an amazing film. What fucking movie are you guys watching? Because you're not watching Matrix Resurrections. Did you guys accidentally put Matrix 1 in and think that it was Matrix Resurrections? Because let's put it this way, they basically look at the fucking same film because they are taking shit from the same movie. But Matrix Resurrections is a horrible fucking film, and it's also not the last fucking time we're going to be talking about it. So anyway, let's move on to Brian. What's your number 4?
My number 4, if I recall, is actually one that you kind of liked, but I really did not, and that is Spiral from the Book of Saw.
Never saw it.
I thought you liked it. Okay.
I had every intention to see it, and then I heard everyone just shitting on it. I was like, oh, I guess I'm not going to check it out then. So no, I actually never saw it.
I mean, Saw is a franchise that it started out as basically trying to be Seven, but more of a mainstream blockbuster kind of movie, kind of a horror movie. Because it was like, you know, the killer trying to teach people a lesson through his ways, torturing them and things like that.
And it worked until
and it worked for what it was. And this is a franchise, I was going to say, from 2 through 34 or however many they made. It's a franchise,
but yeah,
it knew what it was. It's like, this is what we are. This is what every movie's going to be. Here you go. And people ate it up, and more power to them if you like that kind of thing. And I enjoyed them for what they were. I mean, a lot of them weren't very good, but it was like you knew what you were getting in a Saw movie. So this one was coming out, and I'm like, okay, they're kind of taking a different take on it. I'm not quite sure where they're going with it, but you know, I'll give it a chance. And
I don't even know what happens in this movie, so literally anything right now, I'm not gonna know.
It wasn't good. It's basically if you took a Saw movie but told the entire movie from the point of view of the police investigators. So you don't actually see the creative kills, things like this. You're just kind of seeing the aftermath of stuff.
So like Seven?
Basically, except it's not anywhere near as good, obviously. And then your main character, your lead detective, is Chris Rock, who he produced this movie, so of course he cast himself in it because he's the one who wanted to make this. But he's not a particularly good comedic actor, and in dramatic role, he's even worse. And it's like, especially because there's like 1 or 2 scenes where he starts going off on basically like a stand-up comedy tangent, like
his Chris Rockisms,
doing his Chris Rock thing, and everybody's like, "Oh, it's so funny." I think they were just happy that there was at least some life to it, the performance at that point, because it was just he's a miserable actor, he's a bad actor. The movie's completely predictable. There's a scene, I'm not going to go into details, but there's a scene 20 minutes into the movie where a character says something, and you're like, "Oh, well, that person's the killer. I know exactly what he's doing here." But I'm like, well, no, sure, it's some clever misdirect. It was too obvious. But nope, plays out exactly. An hour and a half later, it plays out exactly like you thought it was going to. You're like, oh, okay, yes, they did just give away the killer early in the movie. And it was just like nothing about the movie was good. Like I said, what made the Saw movies what they were is the cool creative kills and things like that. There's very few in this movie, and you don't really see any of them happen. And it's just a movie that I don't know why they let Chris Rock make this movie, but I just hope they don't make more.
Isn't Samuel L. Jackson in it as well?
Samuel L. Jackson's in this, and he's being Samuel L. Jackson. He plays Chris Rock's dad, his character's dad.
Because they're not relatively close to the same age.
Yeah. and he's fine. He's doing his Samuel L. Jackson thing, and whatever. I don't blame him for this, but it's clearly a paycheck.
Okay. Yeah, I never watched it because I just heard how bad it was. And I never like heard, all I heard was how bad it was, but no one ever told me why it was bad. So I never heard it.
Mainly Chris Rock, but yeah.
Gotcha. What was your number? Is it number 3?
We got number 3. Number 3 is probably this will be the last one that you haven't heard of, I think. It's a movie called Warning. So this is another like VOD kind of movie. It's one of those multiple storyline movies where it has like a lot of different things happening, but the stories are are going to like intertwine later. Kind of like a Pulp Fiction, but there's been a billion knockoffs since then. But that kind of thing. It stars in different stories. Got Alex Pettyfer in it. Alice Eve is in it. The one on the poster is Thomas Jane. He's in the movie. Rupert Everett, a couple other people. But it's the problem with this movie is it has these multiple storyline things, and you think it's going to come together. This one never comes together, and some of the stories seem completely unrelated to anything. And honestly, I only had the slightest idea of what was even going on in one of the stories, maybe 2. And I can't even go into a whole lot of details about it. I mean, Thomas Jane is an astronaut at one point. Alice Eve is this girl who has this device. It's like an Alexa or Google, home thing, but it's basically God. She like prays to it and stuff, and it breaks, and she has to go buy a new God, and all kinds of weird things going on. And my computer just heard me say that. Okay, cool. I thought I was talking to it. I should pray, I suppose. But I mean, and there's another story where people. I don't even remember all the details. All you need to know is it's one of those multiple storyline movies. Doesn't come together. It's nonsensical and made no sense, and that's all you got to know. A lot of good cast members wasted, but yeah.
Gotcha. When you told me the cast, I was like, yeah, that sounds like a direct-to-streamer or direct-to-DVD or whatever.
Well, Thomas Jane's another actor who we both like, but he's been pumping out a lot of those video ones. Yeah,
he doesn't do anything really anymore good. Yeah. Going to my number 3, this was my number 1 for pretty much the last like 9 months, and then this month took it out of the top 2, and it's now number 3. And we're bringing back Nicolas Cage. It's Willy's Wonderland.
Never saw that because you told me how bad it was.
Yeah, Nicolas Cage, and this is the same reason why you saw Prisoners of Ghostland or whatever the hell it's called. Yes, he does a lot of weird movies, like straight to streaming, straight to DVD movies, but then he did Mandy. Now, granted, I'm not as much in love with Mandy as a lot of people are, but I at least was like, okay, well, it was cool in some respects. But now when he comes out with these weird kind of horror films or supernatural films, you're like, oh, this might be the new Mandy. This might actually be really effing good. And Willy's Wonderland looked like that because it's basically, anyone who knows the video game Five Nights at Freddy's, it's basically like, what if like the animatronic creatures at Chuck E. Cheese came to life and killed people, and he's stuck in the building. That's what the movie is. Now, what you find out is that this Willy's Wonderland is basically held by a demonic creature or whatever who controls the animatronics. And basically this town, in order for it to remain safe and prosperous, has to feed the store or the building. I think it was like once a month or whatsoever. So they do a whole thing where they'll like put tire or like spikes on a road, and like, oh yeah, we'll bring your car in and fix it, but you gotta, to pay for it, you gotta clean the restaurant for overnight. And then of course, they get killed. So we get Nicolas Cage. He's said victim, and he goes in there and he's cleaning it. And then there's this subplot of these teenagers who knows what's going on, and they want to go in and basically burn down the restaurant. And so they come in because you got to have more fodder to kill in this movie, because you can't kill Nicolas Cage. And it's basically them trying to survive the night with these creatures. Character designs, they look creepy and decent looking enough for it to make sense. Here's the big problem. Besides the fact that the actual dialogue that is said in the film is horrible, and then there are characters who make literally the dumbest fucking decisions you could possibly make. There's literally 2 characters in the film. They know they're in Willy's Wonderland, where there are animatronic creatures who are out to kill you in this place. And for some reason they decide, well, we just gotta fuck. We have, we're gonna, there are animatronic creatures who are here to actively kill us. We cannot get out. We have to survive the night. Well, we might as well just have sex. And then shockingly, they die while having sex. It's like, well, what the fuck did you think was going to happen?
If you gotta go with a smile.
Well, I mean, it'd be one thing if that dialogue was said, like, "Hey, we know we're gonna die. Let's just go out that way." But no, it's just more or less like and it's just like, is this really what you should be doing right now? But here's the main problem with the film. You have Nick Cage, super charismatic, super everything, because he's Nick Cage. He doesn't say one word in the entire film. He never says a word. He's just emoting everything through. And he's kind of playing like this, like, too cool for school. So, like, even when these animatronic characters just attack him, he never loses his cool. It's like he knew what was going to happen. Like, he expected this to happen. Like, his whole main character thing is that, like, every hour or whatever, he's got to chug, like, energy drinks. And, like, in between killing monsters and cleaning up the restaurant, he just really is into playing this one pinball game and then chugging energy drinks every hour on the hour. And that's his character. And then these teenage kids get in the mix, and once again, he doesn't. They're basically there to explain why things are happening and why this is happening and why the town is what there is. Because without them, there's no real explanation for why everything's going on. So you got to let someone be in there to kind of, do exposition, because Nick Cage ain't saying a fucking word. And that's the movie. And it's not really good. It's really, really bad. And I felt bad watching it because I was so hoping this was going to be a Mandy situation because of the plot of the film. And this ended up just being one of the worst films of the year. Granted, it's not the worst anymore. But that's just because the other two, one of them I just really, really hated, and the other one is really that bad. But yeah, Willy's Wonderland had the title for worst film of the year for like 9 months before the last two came in. And you said you never saw it because I told you how bad it was.
I did not see that one.
Yeah. My number 2 is probably going to be a Best Picture nominee. It's probably going to have some actors and actress awards. This movie's fucking awful, and it's Don't Look Up. I hated this movie. I despise this movie. It's idiocracy for smart people, but they're not smart. And like I said, Adam McKay, I love his straight up comedies like Anchorman, The Other Guys, those kind of films. But you know what? He burned his bridge with Will Ferrell, so he's probably not going to make those movies anymore. So now he has to make these satirical comedy garbage that I just don't find. I don't think Big Short was funny. I didn't think Vice was that good. And Don't Look Up is not a good movie. Granted, great cast, but hands down, the most unlikable characters you could possibly put on screen. Jonah Hill, I have never wanted to punch Jonah Hill in the face until I saw him in this film. He's the most unlikable douchebag in this film that you could possibly. Anytime he gets a moment to either just do something halfway decent or go to the exact extreme to be a grade A asshole, he always goes to the exact extreme to be a grade A asshole. Leonardo DiCaprio's character, he's fine, but then they decide to do something with his character about halfway through the film that just like, well, now I can't really like him for what he's doing. Like, why did you let this character do this one thing? Because it wasn't warranted, it wasn't needed, and now I don't necessarily like the character anymore. Meryl Streep is basically female Donald Trump. Basically, that's what that is. The only likable character is, was it Oglethorpe, Robert Morgan's character, or Rob Morgan's character? He's the one character who actually is relatively a good person throughout the entire film. Timothy Chalamet is basically playing Timothy Chalamet with a wig. Jennifer Lawrence also in one of the ugliest fucking wigs. Apparently, Adam McKay just loves making the pretty stars look ugly in his films, or he'll either put shitty wigs on them or just make them look like schlubs. He really apparently gets off on this, like he did with Big Short and Vice. Jennifer Lawrence is annoying to the max, but she's annoying for a good reason, because she seems to be the only person that actually gives a crap about what the hell's going on. Cate Blanchett and Tyler Perry are basically being Michael Strahan and Rhea Ripley, which is not enjoyable by any means.
Kelly Ripa,
I mean, yeah, Rhea Ripley. That's a pro wrestler.
I'm like, what?
Kelly Ripa. I've never wanted a movie about an astronaut hit the Earth faster than I could anticipate it, because I wanted this movie to end. I wanted these characters to die. And I was like, can this asteroid hit now, please? Because I want this movie to be over. I hated this film. And them trying to be so on the fucking nose about like the way the real world is and stuff like that. You're supposed to enjoy movies. You're supposed to have fun with movies. Granted, I mean, there's some pretty hardcore dramas like Schindler's List. You're not supposed to enjoy that film. But you're supposed to appreciate the story and the acting and stuff like that. This is not enjoyable. This is not funny. There's no essence of a good film in this, and I just fucking hated this film. You saw this movie. I know you don't dislike it. Like
I did not feel nearly as strongly as you about this movie. This is a movie I never really liked it, but I never really hated it either. I kind of struggled with my rating on this and where to put it. But it's a movie that it's definitely super on the nose, and it's political commentary about with climate change, and then of course and Meryl Streep playing Donald Trump essentially and things like that. They're not subtle about anything they're doing. But at the same time, if you just watch it and enjoy the story, it's like I didn't hate it the way you did. There are definitely plenty of problems with it. It's still rather mediocre. But again, you assemble this great cast of people, but you put them in these caricatures, and none of them really get to impress you at all. I mean, Leo doing his thing, Jennifer Lawrence is just being herself. Mark Rylance is the one you didn't mention. He's basically playing James Halliday from Ready Player One again, almost the exact same way.
He's basically being a perverted, mentally challenged Mr. Rogers. Every time he's on screen, I'm like, is this?
Which is exactly how he played James Halliday. But yeah,
you're not wrong. But James Halliday, I think
this one's more of a I guess a Steve Jobs kind of person as well.
Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Elon Musk.
So I mean, I won't go on much more about it because you already kind of covered the whole movie and it's on your worst list. But I did not hate it nearly as much as you, but I would not call it a good movie.
Oh God, it's gonna be all over the awards season. I already know it will be.
I don't know. It's actually very divisive. So I don't know.
It will be because it's Adam McKay, and that's the problem is we get now with award seasons.
It makes it really better. I don't think it'll win anything. It might get nominated.
It better not win anything, but that's the problem. Like Del Toro with Nightmare Alley. It's not a bad movie. It's not a great movie, but it's gonna probably be up there, just like anything Tarantino does, which we like Tarantino, but anything Tarantino does is gonna be an awards person. Anything that any of these big time directors that have won awards, anything they come out with, it's going to be up for nomination, whether the movie's good or not. And this is going to be one of those as well, because Adam McKay's last two films were Best Picture nominees. So I would be shocked if Don't Look Up.
I feel the same way. It's like I've enjoyed some of his straight comedies, but ever since he started doing these with Big Short and Vice, I was kind of like, eh.
Yeah, I really could not give a rat's ass about his next film. I really don't care anymore, unless he somehow patches up with Will Ferrell and they come out with another straight up comedy like Anchorman or something. I probably will not be checking out his movies anymore. What was your? We're on your 2 now, right?
Yes.
3.
My number 2 movie was Bad Trip.
Is this the one where they're trying to do Jackass?
It's basically Lil Rel Howery and Eric Andre, basically doing Jackass, where they're doing these pranks.
It's Tiffany Haddish too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But they're 2 main characters. Are basically, and they're doing pranks in front of or to unsuspecting public, and they're secretly filming it kind of thing. And if that's all the movie was, it could have been entertaining. Let them do their little sketches, their pranks. Not all of them were funny. Some of them were, but some of them weren't. But even in the Jackass movies, that's how it is. Some hit, some don't. But the problem is this movie tried to actually put a plot to it. And every time they got back to the story of it, this road trip they're on, I found myself more and more just wanting to skip past all this stuff because the story of it is just completely stupid and unnecessary. They can just present the pranks like they do on Jackass, and it would have been just fine. And then you add in Tiffany Haddish, who I never liked Tiffany Haddish. She has popped up in 1 or 2 roles recently where she's at least been tolerable. But for the most part, I hate Tiffany Haddish. And this is her in full, I want Brian to hate me mode, because she's Tiffany Haddish to the nth degree, and she's not funny at all. She doesn't even listen to a chuckle. It's just kind of like, ugh, please get off my screen. And it's a movie that, yeah, it's like I wouldn't have thought I would be interested in it at all, but I saw the trailer for it. I'm like, you know what? I like Jackass. Looks like that kind of thing, and so I watched it, and it's just not funny.
I remember seeing a trailer for this, and the trailer was enough for me to go, hell no. What you're describing honestly sounds a lot like Impractical Jokers, the movie, but I actually really like Impractical Jokers. But it's like it's them going on a road trip, and when they're doing their Impractical Jokers jokes from the show, it's funny, but then they try to add this storyline, but it's like, we know this isn't real, because we know who the Impractical Jokers are. So it's just like, this is an unnecessary.
It's like they thought, well, to make a movie of it, we have to, do something different, have a story. It's like, no, you don't. Look at the Jackass movies.
Like 3 movies. They just did shit, and it worked, and it will work next year when they come out with Jackass Forever. Just do the pranks and go to the next one. You don't have to have a connective tissue story. It works just fine without it.
Yeah.
What is your number 1 worst film of the year?
My number 1 worst film that I watched of the year is another one in Liam Neeson's paycheck section of his career, and that's The Ice Road.
I didn't watch this because I was like, I already saw Cold Pursuit, and I hate
this. Is basically, well, Cold Pursuit was a whole different.
Oh God, so
I'm not going to talk about that. Ice Road is basically Ice Road Truckers, the movie. So, because it's basically that's what it is. But it's directed by Jonathan Hensley, who actually he did like the Punisher movie with Thomas Jane, and I think he wrote Terminator, at least one of the Terminator 3, I think he wrote, and some other stuff. But I mean, he's got Liam Neeson, which we all know at this point in his career, he's kind of, once he did Taken, he's kind of been trying to cash in on that ever since. But like every single movie is kind of diminishing returns. It becomes less and less interesting and more just kind of, going through the motions. And they get blander and blander with each and every movie. So, but I saw this one because again, I'm like, you know what? The trailer looks fine. Again, is at the time, middle of the year when there wasn't a whole lot of stuff coming out. So I'm like, fine, I'll check it out. And it's like, it honestly, if it went for the fact that it wasn't sci-fi, it felt like a sci-fi original movie, a Sci-Fi Channel original movie. I mean, the acting is on par with that. The like effects, like when there's supposedly like these avalanches of snow or ice or whatever happening, those were horrific. The editing is all over the place. You've seen people mock the scene in Taken 3 where it takes like 38 camera shots for him to jump over a fence. The whole movie's kind of like that, except you also add in tons of shaky cam and stuff like that. Just everything about the movie is bad. Lawrence Fishburne is in it too. And I just felt sorry for Liam and Fishburne that, like I was talking about earlier, this is the main movie where I was thinking, I understand that you want to get paid, but man, you guys had this legacy, this body of work of acting, and you're shitting all over it now.
I vaguely remember the trailer for this. And like I said, I literally thought, I was like, I already saw Cold Pursuit. I don't need to see another snow movie with Liam Neeson. But we've had this discussion on Movie Cruzaders with Liam Neeson and these kinds of movies. Yeah. So yeah, I was not shocked to hear that this was a bad film. My number 1, I had no aspirations to see this film. I heard how bad this movie was, but for some reason, after watching Don't Look Up, I was like, okay, Matrix Resurrections and Don't Look Up cannot be my number 1 or my number 2 worst movie of the year. I'm going to have to watch something that's really bad to just at least have somewhat of a saving grace for this list. And I was like, I'll watch this movie. It's going to be, I know it's not going to be good, but it can't be as bad as everyone says. Apparently I hate myself and I like causing pain because this movie is literally everything that they said it was and more. And that's Home Sweet Home Alone. Let's put it this way. I think I remember when the trailer first came out, I sent it to you. I go, this actually doesn't look that bad.
Yeah, well, because I'll say right in front, I have not seen this movie.
No,
just so you don't even need to come to me later. But this is a movie that obviously didn't need to be made. I haven't watched 3, 4. Were there 4 before this?
There's 5 actually.
Okay, I saw. I'd seen the Macaulay Culkin was 1 and 2. I had not seen.
I saw the third one with Scarlett Johansson's the older sister in.
Yeah, I had not seen those. But this one, it was coming out. I'm like, what? Disney Plus is pumping out some movies, so they decided to cash in on Home Alone because they own that now. Fine. It's got the kid from Jojo Rabbit in it. Which
was a selling point for me. I love that kid.
Ellie Kemper and I forget the other guy's name. Robert. I like them in certain roles. So I'm like, maybe I'll check this out. I don't remember if I even saw the trailer for it at that point or not.
No, I had showed you the trailer.
You showed me the trailer. But then I heard nothing good about it. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna pass.
Well, yeah, because the trailer popped up. I was like, I didn't realize they're making a Home Alone movie, and then I saw who was in it, and I was like, the kid who plays Yorkie in JoJo. I love that kid, and Ellie Kemper. I like Ellie Kemper. Rob Delaney, he's coming up there. And then I saw that Buzz from the first two films was basically a cop, and I was like, and I said that to you. I was like, this. I'm sure it's gonna be at least okay. It's like this has potential, and you're like, I'll wait and hear what everyone has to say about it. So. And then we heard how bad this movie was, that it was a horrible film. And I kept hearing this one specific thing about the movie. And I was like, they can't do that. And so I was like, well, like I said, I really, really hated myself this one night and decided to watch this immediately after Don't Look Up. And no, this movie is bad. And like I said, the number one crime of this film is the whole formula of Home Alone is you have burglars, bad people, breaking into a house that a kid is left home alone in, and the kid has to defend himself against said burglars. You're not supposed to like the burglars. You were not supposed to like Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern in the first two films. They are bad people. They have no qualms in killing a kid. Like, they almost would have gotten away with it, too, in the first movie if it wasn't for the old man.
Basically, it's if you take the first Home Alone and said, okay, they weren't the wet bandits. They were two fathers who were breaking into the house because they needed some food to feed their kids. It's basically what you did with this movie.
Exactly. You're like, well, what if the burglars weren't bad? Like, what if they were literally just trying to take care of their family? And that's what this is. Ellie Kemper and Rob Delaney are these parents who are hit on hard times and they're about to lose their home. They have to sell their home. And they have this doll that's worth like $200K. And the kid's name's Max. He comes in during their open house, is a rude little shit, and it's made to look like he stole the doll. So Ellie Kemper, Rob Delaney is trying to not even break in. They have the fucking keys. They have the security code to get into the house, which is something that the other burglars did not have in the previous films. I just wanted to grab the doll and leave. But instead, they use this weird-ass dialogue in the film to make it seem like they're there to kidnap the kid.
The wacky misunderstanding.
Exactly. Wacky misunderstanding that could have been explained in 2 seconds if you just would have talked. And thus, that's how the movie happens. And the other problem is, too, I've said this to Brian, I said this in my review, Home Alone, the original two, Kevin is a little shit. He is. But Kevin's also pushed into being a little shit because of his family mistreats him. His older siblings talk down to him. His uncle's an asshole to him. He's pushed to basically explode and act like an asshole to his mom. But when he's not with him and he's alone and he's kind of on his own, Kevin's actually a good person. He's a good kid. He's a caring kid. In this movie, Max is not a good kid. Max is a little fucker.
What do you want?
No, Max talks badly to his mom, even when she hasn't done anything wrong. He's rude to strangers for no reason. He literally tries to steal, and he does get away with it. He steals toys from the kids' drive at the church. This is not a good kid. This is an asshole kid, and we're supposed to root for him against these two parents who are trying to save their house. No. So when he actually is doing said pranks to these two, you feel bad for them. Instead, you're not supposed to feel bad when Joe Pesci's head gets lit on fire in the first Home Alone, but yet he lights Ellie Kemper's legs on fire, and you're like, it's not funny. You're not laughing at that. You're like, oh, she's just trying to get the doll to save her house. Come on, man. And then she tries to actively talk to the kid. The kid won't listen. And then finally, we get to a moment where, not that the kid gets trapped, but they finally are like, just listen. We just want the doll. And the kid's like, well, I don't have your doll. And they fight, and then they had the realization that the kid is actually left at home alone because they think he's got a grandma there, which is basically an Alexa talking in German. And there's this one line of dialogue where they finally found out that he's home alone, and Ellie Kemper goes, oh, sweetie, if we knew you were home alone, we never would have done this. What? What? So because he had
if there were other people home, we definitely would have robbed the place.
Well, yeah, if he had a grandma there, it's totally fine. Not that they would have just knocked on the door and talked to said grandma, saying, "Hey,
your son stole our doll."
Yeah, but no, let's break in. But we would never have done this if you were home alone. Then a year later, they fast forward and they're all hanging out as a.
Wait, you forgot the fact they took him home with them.
Oh yeah. No, yeah. That's what I'm sorry.
But I haven't watched it. Sean told me.
No, yeah, I went on a whole huge.
And I listened to the whole description like this. Oh
yeah. So basically, because he's home alone, they take the kid with them to stay with them till the mom comes back. Which the mom's not a bad actress, but she's not given any of the time that Catherine O'Hara got to care about her character, to care about her relationship with Kevin. This woman, she's not bad in the film, but she's not given that time with Max to develop that kind of loving relationship. So these burglars who were, viciously attacked by this kid, like broken bones and crap, basically take this kid home, and he stays with them for at least a day or two until the mom comes home, and then they all become best friends. And a year later, they're all having Christmas dinner together, and it's like, what is this fucking movie? And that is why it is the worst film that we've seen, or that I've seen, of 2021. Yes, I'm sure there are some worse films. Some of that Brian described are pretty bad movies that I've never seen. But Home Sweet Home Alone. Oh, not to mention, Buzz is literally in the movie to name drop Kevin, to show that Kevin is alive, and Kevin still pulls pranks on Buzz about being left home alone. And he doesn't do his job because Ellie Camper basically hits on him like she's going to have sex with him. That's the whole reason why Buzz is in the movie, folks. There are some weird jokes in this film that are really more adult, like Max pushes his sister while she has a VR set on, and she calls him a perv because apparently she thinks that's a sexual come-on for her. This movie's fucking horrible. Anyway, those are the worst films of the year. They're pretty fucking bad. We're going to move on to our most disappointed. These movies, like I said, they're not necessarily movies that we hate. They're movies that we probably for the most part enjoyed, but they just did not hit what we wanted in terms of our expectations. Did you have any honorable mentions?
I had 2 honorable mentions.
Okay, go ahead with your honorable mentions first.
The first one I had was Snake Eyes, which, I mean,
I never saw it because
the G.I. Joe movies are not great. The second one is definitely way better than the first one.
100% agree.
Thanks mainly to The Rock being involved.
Yes.
But also, I mean, some other things. It's just a better movie. But then, obviously, it went dormant for a while. But then I heard they come back with this. You got Henry Golding in it, who's kind of become an up and coming actor. Mm-hmm. It's going to focus on this. You think Snake Eyes is supposed to be, the most, he's the most mysterious character. You don't know much about him. He's great with action. He's got, ninja skills, all this kind of thing. You're like, this could be a good movie. And I went and saw it, and it was just like, first of all, like, in the theme of 2021, the main character, hugely unlikable. He's basically the asshole in this movie. Storm Shadow's the good guy, basically, and he's the bad guy. And he kind of wants Storm Shadow to win in all the battles. You also have basically taken all the mystery away from the character, who that's kind of his whole thing, is not really knowing much about him. But he spends the entire movie without his mask on until they put it on in the last shot of the movie, which basically was the trailer showed the last shot of the movie, which that's always a good thing. And it was just, and the editing of this movie, and the action in this thing was so hard to follow. It's like the action scene was just like shaky cam all over the place. You couldn't tell what was going on. It's just a movie that was, it was too late to try to continue the franchise. So you kind of think they're rebooting it, but this isn't going to do it because it was just a failure.
I was about to say, because doesn't the first G.I. Joe film basically say the whole story of Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow in that first film, and that he took a
They did it properly. They said, here's a little 10-minute segment to explain the relationship between Storm Shadow, but they decided to kind of make that the entire focus of this movie. But you basically think Storm Shadow's the one who got screwed over. Snake Eyes is the asshole. And the worst crime is they have I don't know how to pronounce his name, Iko Uwais. I don't know if that's name from The Raid and some of those movies. Okay. He appears in this movie as a character, and he's just so underused. He's in like a couple scenes. It's like, why bother having him in here and not even really letting him do his thing? But it is what it is. My other honorable mention was Candyman, because the original Candyman I've never thought was a very good movie. I just thought it was kind of shitty, and I don't remember if I saw the sequel in theaters or not. If I did, I forgot everything about it. But the new one came out and the trailer looked creepy. You know, I kind of liked it. It's, I believe, produced by Jordan Peele. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's produced by Jordan Peele. He didn't direct it though.
Yeah, it's produced by him. It's got Yahya Mateen, who we've talked about again. And I thought, you know what, this could be good. And I went and watched it. But it was just, I was so disappointed in it because it it started out really good. It started out strong. I liked the atmosphere they were building to it. But then it just kind of, I don't know, it degraded into this movie that like wasn't very interesting at all. It was leaning way too hard into being social commentary, which like, okay, we get the point. I mean, not quite to the extent of like Don't Look Up, but it's just like, okay, we get it. And then not to mention, this is gonna sound, you know, whiny coming from white boy here, but every white character in this movie was a complete idiot or buffoon or an asshole, and it's like, you know what? If we make a movie where every black guy is that, people lose their minds. But you do it with white guys, it's okay. I'm just saying.
I liked Candyman. I thought it was pretty good, and I liked the visuals and how it looked. I think the end was a little rushed. Because
Yeah,
the one character, the one where he's going to Yaya, or Yaya goes to that guy to get kind of information. His character just does a complete 180 character turn, and there's no build up to that. He just bam is. I was like, what? Wait, when did that character all of a sudden just become this? And yeah, it was very, very rushed.
And again, this is not my worst of list. This is just disappointments.
No, it's
it was not what I hoped it would be.
Yeah. Going to my honorable mentions. Like I said, I like this movie. I just have issues with it, and that because I had this. This was one of my most anticipated from earlier this year, and that's Godzilla versus Kong. Everything Godzilla Kong, I loved.
Team Kong.
Team Godzilla. I love the fights. Except for that, there's no way that battleship would have supported both their weight. That thing would have like instantly. But their fights, I think, worked really, really well, and I enjoyed the fights between them. It was the human stories, shocker, in a Godzilla film that completely tanked this movie, and it's mainly Millie Bobby Brown and Brian Tyree Henry. And I'm blanking on the third person that they were with in that movie.
I don't remember who it was.
But their involvement in the film mainly was because, Millie Bobby Brown was in the last film. Doesn't matter. You also have Kyle Chandler, who's, to me, one of the most underrated great actors in Hollywood.
That entire plot line with those three could have been cut from the movie. Wouldn't have made a difference.
And you know what? If they had cut that, I probably wouldn't have had this movie on my list. That whole plot is completely, utterly wasteless and useless, and they waste about a good 15 minutes of film on this storyline. The other storyline with Alexander Skarsgård and fucking Rebecca Hall, but even she wasn't the worst part of this movie. Shockingly, that plot was fine because it was connective tissue to Kong, and you kind of needed them to, get Kong from A to B. But the whole Millie Bobby Brown, Brian Tyree Henry, and it was the fucking kid from Deadpool 2.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, their whole plot was unnecessary and unneeded, and there was no point to them being in the film because they never interact with any other characters. They're just kind of like there to be there. Like they never interact with anyone in the film. And it just was like unneeded, and it just kept taking me out of the film. I still enjoyed Kong vs. Godzilla, but that particular plot element just really knocked it down a few pegs. It could have been a way better film, but they just completely ruined the human aspects of the story with that. Not to mention Kyle Chandler's only in like 2 scenes in the movie, and it's like, what the fuck was the point for Kyle Chandler to even be there?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I think Kyle Chandler's wasted. I think that the Rebecca Hall. I think that the plot line with the other three, Brian Tyree Henry and them, completely unnecessary. But I went in this movie just thinking I want to see Kong and Godzilla and cool fights, and I got that. Does the rest of the movie live up to those scenes? No, but I got what I wanted out of it.
Did we all know that Mega Godzilla was going to show up in the final act?
Anytime you have versus in the title, it means they're going to fight until a common enemy shows up.
And then they team up together. Exactly. We knew that. But even then, I still liked Mecha Godzilla. I liked that whole. I thought it was all really, really good. It's just there was the one story element that basically just knocked this movie down.
Yeah.
And if I go back to rewatch it, that spot is just getting fast forwarded through. the entire time. My other honorable mention we talked about earlier, which was Venom, Let There Be Carnage. I hate the first Venom movie. I don't understand what people like about that movie. I don't see any redeeming qualities in that first Venom movie. The reason why I had so much hope for this one was because of Carnage and Andy Serkis directing it. I love Carnage and Venom as characters. If you ever watch Spider-Man the Animated Series or anything Spider-Man comics, Carnage and Venom are two awesome characters. And I've never got to see Carnage on screen. And I was so excited to finally see Carnage on screen. Here's the problem. You have Carnage in a PG-13 film. Carnage is a hard R villain. Just like Deadpool is an R-rated character. And Logan was Wolverine done right, which was an R-rated film. Carnage is a murderous serial killer with a symbiote. That is an R-rated film to the 10th degree. Not that what he did in the film was not good, but it really felt like you were neutering Carnage in this film. Not to mention that you neutered your best actor in the film, which was Woody Harrelson. Cletus, there's so much to the Cletus character, and he's trying, but then you completely kind of just abandon the Cletus character to once again give us something that no one wanted in the first Venom movie and no one wanted in this movie, which was this ridiculously stupid love story between Venom and Eddie Brock. No one cares about their relationship. We just want Venom. And then you have this subplot where Venom leaves Eddie and he just starts jumping into other bodies, effectively killing those people. But it's Venom. We don't care. But Venom's killing people, like, because their bodies can't hold on to him like Eddie can. It's not good. I literally fell asleep during the final third act battle in the theater. I fell asleep. I dozed off. Like, I actually had to go to you and go, all right, can you explain me what happened in this scene? Because I saw this and then all of a sudden I woke up and this is what happened. You had to explain to me how the movie basically got to certain points in the film because I fell asleep. I dozed off watching Venom Let There Be Carnage because it was that not entertaining. And yeah, that was a great disappointment because I really, really wanted to see a Carnage film, and this was not the Carnage film I wanted. Not to mention, Naomi Harris was completely pointless in the film.
And I like her in a lot of
I like her in a lot of things.
Pointless in this movie.
Yeah, her was a shriek or whatever they called her in this film. There was no fucking point. And yeah, the whole, like I said, the post-credit scene with Spider-Man, I was just like, no. But that's why I loved the post-credit scene in Spider-Man No Way Home, because I was probably the only person in the sold-out theater going, yes, when that post-credit scene happened, because that meant that fucking Tom Hardy's Venom was not going to be in the
version of Venom. Yeah.
Oh, I was ecstatic with that post-credit scene, because that meant we were not going to fucking have that interaction. But yeah, those are my honorable mentions. My number 5, I gave this a great review. I really like this movie, but had super high expectations. It was one of my most anticipated films of the year, but there's, once again, just like Kong and Godzilla, there's one lingering part of the film that just doesn't make it work for me, and that's A Quiet Place Part 2. I love the first film. You know how much I love the first film. I was so excited for the second movie. It was the first movie to get postponed from COVID last year when everything went to hell. You had tickets, like, in waiting. Like, you had
I was literally supposed to see it 2 days later and the theater's closed down.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
And then you've had those tickets the entire time. We were so worried that it wasn't going to come out, and then it came out. The first 10, 15 minutes is fantastic, showing the day of when everything happened. But just like in most sequels I don't want to say a big ensemble cast, because it's not a big ensemble cast in this, is you separate the group. And that was the biggest problem you did in this film, is you separated Emily Blunt from, is it Millicent Simmons who plays the daughter? I want to say that's her name. Yeah. You separated her and you kept Emily Blunt kind of sidetracked with the younger son and the baby. And you kind of, this movie was basically Millicent Simmons and, Cillian Murphy. Cillian Murphy, am I saying that right? Who I love as an actor. I really like their story. But the problem is, like, they're a family. They need to be together. That was one of the great aspects of A Quiet Place, was the family kind of working together and kind of going through things. But then you just kind of saddled them to basically stay in this bunker. And then it was just kind of everything going on with them. You have Jamin Hansu in the movie for like what 2 minutes. He's completely wasted in the film. You have these sea pirates in the movie, and you think this is going to become a bigger angle, bigger story, but no, they're basically just there for fodder for like a 2-minute scene.
It's just there to try and rape somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They're basically there to rape somebody. It was just like, does everything always have to be fucking rape in these kinds of movies? Like, does everyone's first
There's aliens out there, but we gotta fuck.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we have these creatures that literally can kill us with sound. We've kidnapped a girl. What's the first thing to do? Let's rape her, because that's not going to make noise. But let's do it anyway. It's like, come on. And there's girl pirates there too. So it's like, why was that the first thought process to do? But the number one main thing, and granted, he was the weakest character in the first film, but his weak character is because he was younger. Granted, this movie literally takes place like right after the events of the first film. The younger brother needed to die. The younger brother was awful. He was horrendous. He's just as stupid as the younger sibling.
He almost got them killed so many times. Yeah.
Yeah. He's basically as stupid as the younger sibling who died in the beginning of the first film. He just continually fucks up, and you would think after the events of the first film, he would be at least more smarter or more comprehensive of what the hell's going on. But after halfway through this film, it's like, they just need to kill this kid. Because this kid, it's not the baby. The baby's not going to get us killed. This kid's going to get us killed. I still enjoyed the movie. I think it's still done incredibly well, and I cannot wait for the third one. But it just didn't reach my expectations. Separating the group was the first of many things wrong with the film, but I still really liked it. But that's why it was on my list. What was your number 5?
Well, just a quick comment on.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Too. It's this was not on my biggest disappointments list. I do think it was a step down from the first one, but it was not. I did not love the first one. I liked it a lot, but I was not anticipating this as much as you, which is why I just wasn't as disappointed. What I will say is that my favorite part of this movie is like the first 15 minutes where it's like day one, when they arrived and things.
Yeah, fantastic.
If they had made the movie, if they decided to make this basically a prequel and go day one, like how the shit got to where it was, I think it would have been such a better movie.
Well, that and we also had John Krasinski back.
Yeah, but they went a different direction with it. And so
yeah.
My number 5 disappointment is The Eternals.
This is definitely a film worthy, but I was not excited for it in the first place.
Well, honestly, I wasn't either. This is one of those movies when they announced it, I was like, kind of like, I don't care about the story, but hey, it's MCU, and I didn't care about Guardians of the Galaxy when they announced it. I'm like, what? A talking tree and a raccoon?
I was more excited for Guardians of the Galaxy because of who was in the cast.
Well, that's just it.
I was excited about it.
And so when this came up, I'm like, you know what? I don't know anything about this comic, but it's MCU, and they haven't done wrong yet, and it looks good. And this had Salma Hayek, it had Kumail Nanjiani, it had 2 guys from Game of Thrones, Richard Madden and Kit Harington. What's that?
2 guys from Game of Thrones. I just love that. That's how you like Kit Harington and
Richard Madden.
It had 2 guys from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, but I mean, so it had a good cast. I'm like, you know what? I'm actually excited. Let's see where they go from here. And honestly, if this wasn't an MCU movie, if this is like just like let's say a Fox Marvel movie or something like that, or then I wouldn't have been excited for it. It wouldn't have been disappointed because I maybe not had expectations.
Yeah.
But I think because of the MCU of it all, I'm like, oh, this is kind of see what direction the MCU is going to go from here after Infinity War and all that stuff. And then I watched this movie and I'm like, holy shit, I hope this is not the direction they go, because it's like they've gone from grounded with like Iron Man and things, how it started out. They've gone into the realms of more magical and cosmic things like this, but now they're going into fucking the creation of Earth and the universe itself and all these things. And it's like they're going too big, and these ideas, it's not going to fit well with the rest of it. And I just hope this is not the direction they go with it. Not to mention the cast, even the ones I like, bland from top to bottom. I don't like this director, Chloe Zhao. I was not a fan of Nomadland. I think she made this movie boring. Even the action scenes are not exciting. You got characters who are essentially Justice League. You got Superman, you got the Flash, you got Wonder Woman, you got Cyborg. It's like I think they're in the wrong universe. I'm not sure what's going on here. And it's just it's a movie that, like I said, I maybe got my hopes up too high just because it was the next stage of the MCU. But man, this is a major stumble for them, I think.
I agree with pretty much almost everything you said. And that was my big problem with the film as well, is that this movie makes everything that we've been watching previously in the previous 20 plus films feel insignificant. It makes Thanos feel like an ant by comparison of the Celestials. It's like, so them snapping the universe, Thanos, all like that's nothing compared to what these guys are taking. Like, there's nothing that happened in this film that I felt like any of the Avengers could have handled. This Celestial coming out of the Earth, I don't think Captain America or Spider-Man or any of them could have done anything, or even Captain Marvel. I don't think any of them could have done anything about that. So it has made everything that the MCU has done to this point feel pointless. And that's the other great thing, is that once we got this movie out of the picture, we got Hawkeye, we got Spider-Man, we've gotten all these other things, and those feel so good and so right by comparison.
I'm hoping in the future that we'll be able to just ignore this movie, but I hope they don't tie anything too closely to it, because that would ruin everything.
Yeah, and I agree. The characters are super bland and uninteresting, and like you said, you have like your Superman, your Flash, and all this stuff, and then you have the vampire kid from Near Dark, except she's a female, which once again she basically just wants to fuck. She just can't say it because it's an MCU movie, and she's like, I just want to be old and stuff.
No, I'm stuck in this young body.
You just want to get laid. Like, let's be real. You want to get laid. Because that's why literally the first moment of the scene we see you're pretending to be a college student hitting on a guy, and then he realizes you're not a real person, and you storm off, and you're like, damn it. Not that you could have done anything to begin with, but like, you just want to have sex. Let's call a spade, and just come out and say it. Kumail Nanjiani, I think, was the best part of this film. And then they completely...
He's up and leaves.
He's up and leaves in the third act. You're like, oh, well, he's going to come back around. No, he doesn't. After the events of the third act happen, he shows back up like, well, it's a good thing we did the right thing. You didn't do anything. You left. You left. And then the final moment of the film where a Celestial literally just moves the clouds and grabs like these people off and says, what? No. What? How was that not on the news? How is that not like everyone's this godlike being just reached?
You guys saw that, right?
Yeah, it's like, tell me everyone saw that, because it's not like everyone froze. Everyone looked up and like, what the fuck? And the movie ends. And not to mention the post-credit scene with the fucking was he a druid or a dwarf or whatever? The CG of that?
Yeah, with Patton Oswalt voicing the worst CG I've seen in an MCU movie.
And then he's basically the hype man for this character.
And
I was honestly thinking that it was Adam from Guardians 2. I was like, oh, they're bringing him in. No, it's Harry fucking Styles. And I was like, the equivalent of a wet fart is what that preview was. And then the end credit scene is Kit Harington touching the sword, and like he tries to talk at the end of the film, like, well, there's some things you didn't know about my family. You know what? Maybe I'd give a shit if you were in the movie longer than 5 minutes.
Well, and then the problem is, like, only the deepest people who know anything about comics were like, oh my gosh, I know what that is. And
He's
it's
Black Knight. I'm like, shut up. You just read the wiki before this movie happened.
It's him, and apparently the voice you hear was Mahershala Ali as Blade. And it's Blade. Like, but you don't know that. And first of all, I'm not even interested in Mahershala Ali as Blade either. Don't get me started on that. But yeah.
I was like, and everyone's like, yo, it's Blade, Sean. I'm like, no, until I get the subtitles and have it say Blade, say that, I'm not buying that it was Blade. Now, granted, he's come out and said that was him, and he hated the voice he chose for that. So he's probably going to change his voice when they do the Blade movie. But it's just like, no, Eternals sucked ass. And like it's not in my bottom 10 of the movies because it's not as bad as those other movies, but this movie fucking sucked.
And honestly, it's the only MCU movie that I will probably never watch again.
There's been only one movie so far from the MCU that I've only watched once. And I didn't even hate it. It's just it's so...
Is it Ant-Man and the Wasp?
Yes, it's Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Because I've only seen that once too, and I didn't hate it.
It's not even bad. It's just like, it just doesn't matter.
It's insignificant.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton. It's like, it was a good movie, but it's insignificant to the rest of the franchise, the rest of the story. So I don't have a reason to ever go back and rewatch that. I hope to God Eternals has no more connective tissues to the MCU, because I really don't want to ever have to rewatch this movie again.
Let me pray to my Alexa and see if they can do that.
Yes. That was your 5, right?
That's 5.
All right, my number 4. I really loved the first film of this. The second film I thought was fine, but it wasn't good as the first one. You are not a fan of either of these films, so I already know you're not going to care about this. But my number 4 most disappointing film of the year is The Conjuring 3, The Devil Made Me Do It. I was actually really excited for this one because of what the story was that we were going to have in this movie, which was, I'm blanking on the characters, but it's basically about it's the Amityville house for the most part, isn't it? Or it was, I'm pretty sure the Amityville house was at the start of the film, and then you had this guy who killed his friend or whatever, but he doesn't remember doing it, and he's basically pulled over on the side of the road covered in blood. And he says that, basically a demon took over his body, and he's going to trial. And you think that, the Warrens are having to come in and basically be on trial with this guy to try to sell them that, yes, demons exist and all this kind of stuff. That's the way they pitched this movie when you saw the trailers. And that is not the fucking movie we got. Instead, it was basically Law and Order, demons and witches VU, because there's a whole subplot where there's this witch who's like killing people or using people's souls or whatever, that's not even really connected to that much of the main story, that basically just kind of feels like a cop detective show for Vera Farmiga's character. And then Patrick Wilson's character, he's had a heart attack, so he's kind of sidelined through most of the movie, or he can't do a whole lot because, he might have another heart attack. So he's just kind of window dressing for the film. And then the one point in the movie where he tries to do something, it's like, is he going to keel over and die? It's like, well, no, because we know when he dies in real life, because these are based on real life characters. So that whole scare tactic that he might not survive is kind of fucking pointless because he doesn't die at this point in his life. But you also have this one part of the film where this guy who's on trial, he's in the prison medical area, he's staying in the prison hospital overnight, and literally the demon takes over him, and he is floating in the air, doing the whole crucifixion thing, at least floating 6+ feet in the air. Windows are shattering all around him. There are at least 10 people who are watching this happening. We're talking about like doctors and nurses and police, prison, people and all that. They are seeing this, but they don't believe it. It's like, you are visually watching a guy floating in the air, doing all this stuff. He's being contorted and bent, but no, we still have to go to trial to say that he's full of shit. And it's just like, really? I feel like this movie is just completely lost what the essence of The Conjuring was, because this did not feel like a Conjuring movie to me. This felt horrible, and it just it's really disappointing. I just remember watching this movie going, this is not that good. This is
the funny thing is, for me, I did not love the first Conjuring. I thought it was okay. The second one I thought kind of sucked. This one I actually found to be, for me, the most watchable and interesting of them. But here's the thing: is nothing you've said I disagree with. Right? You know what this felt like, and I think you actually mentioned this to me. Maybe that's why the idea got in my head. This felt more like an episode of Supernatural.
Yeah, yes, this was more like an episode of Supernatural.
And maybe that's why I enjoyed it more, because it was just like, here's this little story, and then but
Sam and Dean Winchester could have figured this out in under 40 minutes, and they have done so 18 times through Supernatural.
So of course, being Conjuring, I didn't have expectations, so therefore I was not disappointed in it. But
I
don't disagree with anything you said.
I don't like the Conjuring verse, but I love the Conjuring franchise. And Annabelle Comes Home, so that's basically Conjuring 2.5. But yeah, no, this movie this least favorite one. I have no interest in rewatching this. It was an epic disappointment. What's your number 4?
My number 4 we talked about earlier is Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard.
Well, you already got everything I wanted, so this is all you.
Yeah, so yeah, I've heard your thoughts on it. Which, for the most part, I had the same feelings as you, although I did not consider it one of the worst films of the year. It was definitely one of the most disappointing, because the first one came out kind of out of nowhere. People just saw the trailer like, whoa, this looks hilarious. We went and saw it. It was. It had good action to it. It had kind of a 90s throwback feel to the action buddy cop movies kind of thing. Not buddy cops, but you know what I mean. But it's Samuel L. Jackson doing Samuel L. Jackson, Ryan Reynolds doing his thing, and the chemistry worked great, and Salma Hayek was great. And so, sequel, sure, why not? I love all three of these people. Let's do some more. In this one, I will say the one thing they got right, Salma Hayek seemed to be having a blast. They gave her a lot more to do, and like you said, a lot of it, she got some screaming and things like that. But she seemed to just be having fun. They put her in the forefront and said, let's let you do a lot more stuff, and she did. And I'm all for that. Samuel L. Jackson was just doing Samuel L. Jackson again, but he really felt like he was phoning it in. And Ryan Reynolds was definitely just like, oh, did I already sign the contract for this? Fine, I guess I'll film this in between my other better movies. It totally felt like he was just like doing his Ryan Reynolds isms. And I don't completely blame the actors for that, because I think a lot of the script is completely lazy. Antonio Banderas is wasted in this, especially.
I totally forgot he was in it. I forgot he was in the movie.
Especially get him and Salma Hayek back in the movie together. That should be great. That should be a big deal, and it wasn't. And it was just like, I didn't hate this movie as much as you did, but I was hugely disappointed by it.
That was your 4, right?
That was my 4.
Go ahead with your 3.
My 3 is another Ryan Reynolds movie. And that's Red Notice. Red Notice is another one of these, kind of like Hitman's Bodyguard, where it's basically what you've assembled in this project. I mean, it's going to be this first Netflix movie it's got Dwayne Johnson in it. It's got Ryan Reynolds in it. It's got Gal Gadot in it. 3 people at basically the top of their careers, the top of their games, put them together in action, comedy. I guess there's not really romance in it, but that kind of thing. Print your money, right? It's going to be gold. Man, this movie was disappointing. It was just, Ryan Reynolds felt like he was just kind of doing his Ryan Reynoldsism, which maybe part of it's just, it's gotten old at this point. And he himself.
It hasn't gotten old, because one of our favorite films of the year is him basically doing his Ryan Reynoldsisms, and it works. So
that's a good point. Yeah. That's a good point. Him in there, we got Dwayne Johnson being Dwayne Johnson, which in most movies, that's fine. He's one of those actors who knows his range. I mean, he's done some dramas and he's done a good job in them, but when he's doing like an action blockbuster kind of thing, he's just Dwayne Johnson, and that's fine. He is who he is, and it works. But something about this movie, part of it's the production of it, I thought just looked cheap as hell. Anytime they're not inside a room somewhere talking, they are clearly in front of a green screen. It's like, I don't even think these people ever went on location anywhere. I don't know if it's a COVID thing. I don't know if it was a budget thing, what it was, but it was done, and not even done very well. It's just, even people who aren't in the movies can look at this and be like, wow, that background looks really fake. You got, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Chris Diamantopoulos.
Oh, Diamantopoulos, yeah.
Who,
Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, I actually like that guy, but he's in this movie doing this like Voldemort or Eddie Redmayne in Jupiter Ascending.
I can't remember who I said he was.
I think Dumbledore.
Trying to be Dumbledore, yeah.
Because he's doing his voice through the whole movie. He's like,
Potter.
I describe it as the Eddie Redmayne in Jupiter Ascending, which is this weird whispery voice for no reason. It serves no purpose for me doing this voice.
No, there really isn't.
That's ridiculous, and it just looks cheap. And then they have these twists after twists at the end, which it's another one of those movies where if you think back in the movie, none of it makes sense. It's like
and they also give it away in like the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's a twist just for the sake of being a twist. Because if you think back to all the things that happened, like none of the things would have happened that way if this was truly the goal they were after. I mean, and then at the end they're jumping in a Jeep that's been sitting there for 50 years. It just works perfectly, just every little thing. But that's getting in the nitpicky stuff. But even just in the broad, it's just a movie that, again, not the worst movie of the year. This is my worst of list. But it was just, from what I expected from these people to what I got, huge disappointment.
It also has the most unnecessary guest appearance in the film with Ed Sheeran.
Oh, yeah.
I'm Ed Sheeran, bitch!
Although, it was kind of amusing, Ed Sheeran.
No. I like Ed Sheeran. I actually like Ed Sheeran. But I was like, was this really necessary? It really wasn't necessary in this movie. Red Notice. I almost considered putting this on this list, but then it was just like, am I anticipating this film because of the story, or is it literally just because these 3 leads are together? And that was the whole thing, is like the 3 leads together. Yes, I was excited for this movie, but when I saw the trailer, it's like, okay, it looks like it could be fun, but I wasn't like, oh my God, I can't wait to see this movie. Everything that you're saying, I agree with. The only things I have left to add is that for the most part, Ryan Reynolds is supposed to be like the number 1/number 2 best art thief in the world. There's never a part in this film that I believe that Ryan Reynolds was an art thief, because he doesn't do anything in this movie that is remotely like art thiefy. Like he doesn't.
Just the opening scene of parkour.
Yeah, he's just being Ryan Reynolds with parkour capabilities, but he's not doing anything like it. Like and granted, like you've on the Weekend Crusaders, you had me watch Thomas Crown Affair and After the Sunset, where we see Pierce Brosnan doing things that go, that's why he's the best at this. That's why he's this amazing art thief. And I see Ryan Reynolds in this. I'm like, Ryan Reynolds is just there to kind of be quippy. The Rock is doing everything. Dwayne, and if you told me Dwayne, was one of the greatest artists, which twist, okay, yeah, he is. Then I'm like, okay, I believe it because he's doing all this extra shit. Ryan's just kind of there to just be there because he's Ryan Reynolds. And then Gal Gadot, like I said, if they ever made Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, this movie sold me that Gal Gadot could play that part. Because she, to me, just reminded me of Carmen Sandiego. But yeah, this movie is just kind of meh. Like it was a Netflix movie. If it was like an in theaters movie, I would probably been a lot more harsher on it. But it's like it's a Netflix film. I think it did what it set out to do. Was it mildly left me entertained for 2 hours, and afterwards, did I really remember much about it? No. Have I thought about it since the movie came out? Nope, not until you just brought it up. I totally hadn't even thought about Red Notice barely at all. But I mean, that's what it did. It's like I enjoyed Ryan Reynolds and Dwayne together. I thought they were fun quipping together. Do I wish they were in a better movie? Sure. I think Gal Gadot was solid in the film, but could they have been in a better movie together? Absolutely. Yes, Chris Demolopoulos, whatever the hell his name is. I like that actor. I like him in a lot of things he's in. He's atrocious in this film. There's no point to his character in this film. But yeah, as you say, it's just
just because you mentioned it, what I wish had actually happened is I guess like Ryan Reynolds and Dwayne Johnson for a long time wanted to work together. They were originally supposed to be the two characters in the movie Ride Along.
That actually would have been a lot.
That would have been awesome, and of course they didn't do it. And then they casted people, and the script got changed a lot.
Well, yeah, Ice Cube.
But the basic concept of it was the same, and that would have been a good movie. But
the only reason why I don't think that necessarily would have worked is because I don't think The Rock at that time had his niche. So I think Rock still would have been kind of where he's not really getting his flow in.
Yeah.
And that probably is why it would have worked. Had they made Ride Along right now with those movies not have been around, then I think that would have been a perfect film for them. Yeah. But yeah, my number 3 is a movie that you and I were so damn excited for. One of our most anticipated films together, one of our most anticipated films of the year. I still gave this very high reviews. It just didn't match my expectations and my excitement for it. And that was Last Night in Soho. I love Last Night in Soho. I think it's a great film. I really enjoyed it. But there were just certain aspects of the film that as I was watching, I was like, I'm not enjoying this as much as I wanted to enjoy this film. I think Anya Taylor-Joy is fantastic in it. I think Thomasin McKenzie is really good in it. I wish they would have given Matt Smith more to do because I think Matt Smith's character had a lot of potential, but then they just kind of stopped with his character because obviously with the progression of the story. I think the first half of the film is great. And then the second half where it's all like kind of like messing with her head and she's got these like ghosts like coming after her and stuff. I think that's when the movie really starts to kind of fall apart for her when she constantly keeps following the old dude thinking that it's Matt Smith's character. And then you get the twist and all that stuff. It's just, that stuff really didn't work. And then you kind of also saw the ending twist coming from a mile away as well. I still enjoyed the movie, but I think you and we had this movie on such a fucking high pedestal with what we had seen of it and what we knew what it was going to be. I don't know if this movie was ever really going to match our expectations. But it just, it didn't reach it for me. It's still a very good film. It's a very good film. It's to me probably one of the weakest Edgar Wright movies, but the weakest Edgar Wright movie is still better than a lot of other movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why it was probably one of my most disappointing.
I was not as disappointed in you. I mean, I was anticipating it big time just because of being Edgar Wright and because of the cast.
Yeah.
The story, I really didn't even know much about it. You kept a lid on it for a long time. But it was Edgar Wright and this cast. You're like, I want to see this movie. And so by that rationale, did it live up to my expectations? No, but I don't think I was as disappointed as you, because once I found out the story of it, I was kind of like, okay, whatever, you know.
It wasn't that I was necessarily disappointed. It's just that we had such high expectations.
Mhm.
It didn't even remotely come close to it, and that's why it's number 3 because of how much
I
expectations.
get it, and again, like everything you said, I completely get and agree with. You know, the ghosts. Once it turned to ghosts, that's kind of when the movie kind of lost its way,
Yeah,
and it was weaker. And so, and everything else you said, I actually agree with. I still enjoyed it. I think a little bit more than you did, though.
I definitely did love the way he shot it. I loved how he perfectly intertwined Thomason and Anya in certain scenes where literally
Oh, I can't wait for like the just to come out so I can watch all the extras and see how they did.
yeah, I like I said, I really liked the movie. There was a lot of things I liked about it. I loved how like one would be walking and the other one would be in the reflection, and then like
And then the dance scenes when
the
they
dance
walk in and out.
which was all done in one take apparently.
Yeah, that's why I said I want to watch the extras when this comes
Or
out.
like the one moment when like Anya Taylor-Joy is like leaving the table and Maximus chasing after her, and you see it's Anya, and then he grabs her and she turns and it's Thomason. Like I loved that stuff. It was the real world or like the present day stuff that just really didn't click or didn't work. Like the guy who has a crush on Thomason McKenzie's character is just kind of.
I actually liked him, and I liked those scenes.
I didn't hate him. Just his character was just kind of there. He's just there.
With me, I think most of my disappointment lies with the whole third act and the ending of it.
Third act does kind of get a little, which to me, like, and I said this, that's always been Edgar Wright's problem is I don't know if his third acts to me, except for Scott Pilgrim, and Shaun of the Dead, I think his third acts kind of fall apart. I think Baby Driver is great until it goes bombastically crazy in the third act. I think Hot Fuzz is great, and then it goes extremely over the top violent, which now I'm okay with. But
that's kind of the point of that movie, though. Yeah,
exactly. But it's just like I have a feel like Edgar Wright always has. I feel like his third act is his kryptonite. I think he does a great all the way up, and then he gets to that last like 30 minutes, and it's like I feel like Edgar Wright just doesn't know how to end his movies.
But not quite to the like Stephen King levels.
No, definitely not that. What was your number 3?
My number 3, it was Red Notice.
Oh,
my number 2.
I'll go to my number. Wait, actually, no. Go with your number 2.
My number 2 is another Netflix movie, although I did see it in the theaters, and that's Army of the Dead.
How is this disappointing? I don't think you were remotely excited for this movie whatsoever, though.
No, I was, because I
was more excited for this movie than you were.
What is Zack Snyder's best movie? It's Dawn of the Dead, right?
Well, 300's his best movie, but Dawn of the Dead is his second best movie.
Honestly, you're right. Yeah, well, 300 and even I like Man of Steel, honestly, too. But this seemed to be Zack Snyder, who had gone on to excess with Sucker Punch and with the Justice League movies, all those kind of things. He really lost his way, and him going back to kind of basics, going back to the a zombie movie, and like this could be really good. And then it's taking place in Vegas. You got this cast that includes like Dave Bautista and some of these people. And I'm like, I think this sounds like it could be really good. I saw the first trailer for it. It kind of had like a Zombieland kind of feel to it, especially even the opening of the movie definitely had like a Zombieland feeling to it.
100% did.
Setting in Vegas could be so much fun with it. And so I was really amped to go see this movie. Like I said, I drove 45 minutes to go see it in a theater that was playing it for a week before it came out on Netflix. And I went and saw it. I regret that trip. It was just...
I didn't hate this movie nearly as much.
He's actually kind of reined in his visual flair a little bit, but he still kind of was doing his Zack Snyderism, which was fine. My bigger problem with the movie is it's way too long, way too slow. There's actually what little zombie action there is like a very kind of brief scenes, and then it goes for like a half hour of people talking, and then does another brief scene, and it's just like so much stuff could have been easily cut out. And I don't even remember. I haven't watched this in a while, so I don't remember all my detailed complaints about it. But I was just so disappointed from what I thought it could be to what I got.
I remember the first time this movie came out, I actually quite enjoyed it, and then like the verbal backlash I got from you for liking the movie, and then granted, like it was one of those things. Like I really enjoyed it, and then like as each passing day happened, and the more and more I kept like watching like other people's reviews and you and like honest trailers stuff like that, I was like, wow, that movie really wasn't that good, was it? It's like I still for the most part I think I actually like still partially enjoyed it. That first like 10-15 minutes though is one of the best first 10-15 minutes of a film this year. That
I loved the opening of it.
Fantastic. It's fantastic. But yes, when you start to think about the actual rest of the movie as a whole, like there's no way they would have gotten all that money out with backpacks on, and just the plan itself is just
the whole plan is ridiculously stupid.
The daughter going off and doing what she does in the movie, which is just like, what the fuck was the point? Or even the end when
there was no point to the entire movie.
There really wasn't, and we're going to continue with this franchise as well. This is the new DCEU for Zack Snyder. He's just going to continue with, like I said, Army of Thieves which I think you liked Army of Thieves.
Army of Thieves was just an okay movie, but once you put Natalie Emmanuel in anything, I'm going to watch it. So
yeah, I mean now they're going to be. I guess there's like an animated film that's
there's an animated one coming. I think around October.
But I think that's supposed to be about the first 10-15 minutes of the film, and they're supposed to continue on with this and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to check it out. Yeah, I think you will too. I don't think you're going to actively avoid it when it comes out.
I'll check it out. I will be hopeful. Yeah.
Yeah. My number 2 is Matrix Resurrections. We're going to talk about it all over again. No, I'm just it's one of those where it's like, it's not that I was like super, super excited for it, but knowing that one of the Wachowskis was coming back and they got Keanu back and they got Carrie-Anne Moss back, I was like, well, this has to be at least decent. Like, this cannot be horrible. So I got kind of excited for it. And the reason why my excitement level got raised up is because I did go back and rewatch at least the first Matrix before this movie came out. And I got to see, I saw like parts of the 2 and 3 before. So my excitement level had gotten up there by the time this came out. And then of course, obviously we already discussed it, but the movie that we got, I was just like, fuck you. I hate this movie so much. So it wasn't like on my most anticipated. I don't even know if it really wasn't on my most anticipated. I'm trying to think back to earlier in the year if this was on our anticipated list or not.
I would not have put it. Well,
I want to say it was probably in our teens.
If I had it, it would have been low on the list because this is a movie that I was kind of like,
It was just one of those things where it's like, well, if Keanu and Carrie-Anne Moss are back, then the script has to be at least.
It must have been worthwhile, yeah.
And this is the movie we got. So yeah, I was just like, what the hell were you guys thinking?
Yeah.
So that's why it's my number 2. So what was your number 1 most disappointing film of the year?
Most disappointing movie of the year is all about family, and that is F9.
This movie did not rank on my list because I saw the first trailer and I already knew what movie it was going to be.
Well, that's just it. If you're ranking disappointment from the first trailer, the first trailer had already dropped it down.
My expectations were already so low that I was like, yeah.
But I'm saying disappointed from my original expectations.
Okay.
Because I like the Fast and Furious movies. All the way through 8, I've been a defender of them. Yes, they've gotten, unbelievable and kind of ridiculous in parts, but it's a movie. You go with it. It's got fun action sequences. It's, you can suspend disbelief. This movie, even from the first trailers, I saw it and I'm like, they're really pushing the envelope of what people can suspend disbelief and like go with. Because there's things that are just completely ridiculous. And then you heard the rumors of like, they're going to go to space. I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But then I saw the movie. I still thought I'll enjoy the movie. Maybe it was a bad trailer. And it was just so beyond ridiculous that you can't even go with it. You can't even have fun with it because you're just like rolling your eyes the entire time. You have not only the like jumping the chasm by swinging Tarzan style in a car across there, not just going to
where he has precisely hit that hook just at the right moment.
Not just going to space in just some plain old car where the windows would have crushed, much less anything else. And they're just because you're wearing a deep sea diving suit from the 1960s or whatever it was. And not even that part. That's completely stupid and ridiculous, and you can't believe that. But everything else, from the very beginning of the movie, they're going on these like big adventures where you got truckfuls of mercenaries, trained mercenaries, shooting machine guns at them. Nobody's getting hit by a single bullet or anything. Of course, they think just because we make some comedic line by Tyrese mentioning that way.
Not even once. He does, I think 2 or 3 times he brings that up in the movie.
Because they think that, if we acknowledge it, then people can't criticize it. No, we can.
Yeah, okay? 100% can.
Because you got 15 people shooting at you in one spot and nobody's hitting you with a single bullet. But the story of it was stupid. You introduced this brother out of nowhere played by John Cena, who John Cena is one of those actors. You put him in the right role. You put him in The Peacemaker in Suicide Squad. He's hilarious. Put him
Perfect.
in a small role in Trainwreck. He's hilarious.
He was good in Vacation Friends on Hulu.
Yeah, he can do good in the right roles. In this one, when he's trying to act serious, he's just his acting's horrible.
He's not even trying to act serious. He's just trying to act extra like badass, and it's just not working.
Yeah, I think the action's horrible. I think the writing's horrible. I think that, again, I don't really blame any of the actors. Well, besides him, maybe I don't blame any of the other actors they're just reading their lines, they're doing their job, getting their paychecks. But the story and everything was just so bad they couldn't recover from it. And again, this isn't the worst film of the year. It could have been a contender, honestly, but it was definitely the most disappointing for me because I had such high expectations. Because, like I said, all the way through even Fast 8, which a lot of people didn't like, I still love these movies. And this one is one that I don't know if I'll ever watch a second time.
I love Fast and Furious to a point, but it's gotten kind of like F9 or Fate and the Furious was kind of like they're really starting to take themselves too seriously with like Vin Diesel's really trying to like get like a drama award for this, and it's like, no, this is not that kind of movie. It's like I feel like everyone's in.
Well, that's just it. He tries to get more dramatic on one side, at the same time getting so ridiculous with the stunts.
I feel like everyone's in on the joke of what these movies are, except for Vin. I think Vin thinks these movies are supposed to be like Oscar-worthy, like drama acting, and everyone else is like, "This is a fun popcorn flick. Let's have magnets that can suck cars up."
Oh my God! How did I forget the magnets? Don't even get me started on the magnets.
Yeah, and stuff like that. But then here's Vin, where it's like, "This is my family, my brother." And it's like, no, Vin, no. You need to start realizing what movie you're in.
Well, the thing is, honestly, starting with where they had the first couple movies, and then they decided to start kind of bringing together people from throughout the franchise. And so the last few movies obviously has been this team, and I've loved that because all these different kind of characters. I love the team they assembled. Vin Diesel, Dominic, is actually the character I care least about in this entire franchise.
Oh yeah,
if they killed him and continued with like the rest of the people, I'd be way more interested in it.
This is also one of those things that is hurt by the trailers, because the very first trailer they give away that Han's back, but yet in the movie,
another thing is just like ridiculous.
Yeah, in the movie we're waiting like 45 minutes for the Han reveal, and they're continually be like, "Oh, well, Han's dead, but let's follow these breadcrumbs." And then when Han shows, you're like, "Oh!" It's like, no, we already knew this because you gave it away in the trailer. Like, if you could have given that away,
the explanation for it is just stupid.
So, God, yes. It's like, oh, he wasn't really in there, really? Because I'm pretty sure we saw him in the fucking car when it exploded. But no, he's with Mr. Nobody in the corner. It's like, what?
Because Mr. Nobody knew to be right there at that point.
Also, I love how they just completely, like, Mr. Nobody gets captured and like they never saved Mr. Nobody.
He's still there right now.
Yeah, but Kurt Russell never gets saved. And can we also talk about how this movie completely just said, "Hey, Charlize Theron, you're gonna stand in a box the whole movie, and you're gonna make little quips at whatever the villain character was that wasn't John Cena," which was like, why are you here? What is the purpose of your character besides being like the rich money guy for John Cena? And then he's just like, "I'm a big boy too. I'm the bag." I'm like, no, shut the fuck up. You're in a Fast and Furious movie. You're fodder. But this movie was not good. This ranks up there with, like, to me, like Too Fast, Too Furious, and like Tokyo Drift is like two of the worst.
Well,
like,
this is the point where it's like I said, I was with the Fast franchise, but this is the point where I'm like, I honestly don't care where the Fast franchise goes. I hope they continue with the Hobbs and Shaw stuff because I like that.
Yeah, and I don't even know what the plans are for that anymore. I don't know if they're still planning on it.
Last time they still plans for it.
They were.
Yeah, I mean, it still made more money than all but like 3 of the Fast movies. So yeah.
Yeah. So my number one. Part of me is wondering. Do you know what my number one is? Can you guess what my number one is?
Not offhand, no.
There's a review that we did together this year where I blew up so much on the review about how angry I was at it. You literally went, "Well, okay then. I really don't know what else to say. I've never seen Sean this angry while doing a review." And that is a movie that you and I both we're super excited for because of the trailer. And that is Mortal Kombat.
Oh.
Fucking Mortal Kombat. That first trailer came out and it looked badass. It looked awesome. It looked like the Mortal Kombat movie we had been waiting for. What did we get? A fucking creative fighter who can fucking beat Goro. And I'm not gonna go back into the whole Goro rant. If you guys want to see
go watch his review.
Yeah. If you want to see me go off, watch the spoiler review with Brian and I around the 50-minute mark. I am going to go on an epic rant about the fucking Goro fight in this movie. Whew, it gets heated, but just the most bland, could give a rat's ass about character, and that is the character that we're supposed to be in with. That's the character we're supposed to follow and care about with. And frankly, that's the one character I wish we fucking got killed. Liu Kang, wasted. Kung Lao, wasted. Scorpion, pretty badass, but then he's only in the beginning and the end of the film. Sub-Zero, pretty great. Sonya, wasted. Kano, pretty damn good. I think general consensus, everyone really loved Kano.
Kano was the best part of the movie. Yeah.
Kano is the best part of the movie. The fight sequences, some of them are good, others are not so good. The story itself is bad. Raiden, worthless, no point to it. Adding this whole, almost like the Force element to it of how they, I forgot what they called it, their Kanana or Kiana or whatever the fuck
I don't remember what it's called.
Their mantra thing that lets them have powers. Them like having to figure that out in order to fight just was like, why did you do this? You didn't have to do this. Like I know it starts with a K, but it's this movie is not good. And I remember you and I were like, well, it's got to be better than the 1995, and definitely is going to be better than Annihilation. It is better than Annihilation. I'm not going to say that it's worse than Annihilation, but it's 1995 is just still better. I know you don't like 95s because you think it's really campy and shit, but by the end of this film, like the movie ends and it's like, now let's go to Mortal Kombat. It's like, so this whole movie was just them setting up to go to the tournament. Like the tournament doesn't even fucking happen. And then like any character that died just got like respawned at the end of the film by Shang Tsung to then go into the tournament. And it's just like, what the fuck was the movie that I just watched? What was the point? What was the point of this movie then? And then, of course, like I said, the fucking main cast character who, generic fighter who's supposed to be like the son or like the, heritage of Scorpion. Now, had he turned into Scorpion at the end of the film?
Everybody thought he was going to become the new Scorpion.
I'd be like, okay, cool. But no, I can't remember the fucking character's name.
Something, yeah.
Yeah, well, I could beat Goro. It's like, fuck you. No, you can't. Oh god, that Goro fight. There are movies where it's like, had that movie not not happened, I probably wouldn't be so harsh. But this ranks right up there with the Spinosaurus killing the T-Rex in 90 seconds.
John has a Goro thing.
There are things you don't do. There are things you don't fucking do, and that is one of them. And that's why this week, I was so angry.
I had forgotten how much you.
I was so angry watching this movie. I was so heated. I was so fucking heated.
This movie still flirts with just outside my top 20 of the year. Because
oh my god,
I enjoy this movie. Now I got exactly what I wanted in this movie. Is the main character totally just bland creative fighter? Absolutely, but I figured we're just following him as a way to get in to watch all the other characters in the Mortal Kombat universe. And I got the cool bloody fights. We finally got the R-rated version. Kano I thought was awesome. We did think he was going to become Scorpion, and yes, they probably should have gone that route instead of what they did. But whatever. So the movie's not perfect by any means, but I was not as disappointed as you.
Sonya, who the whole time you're like, you're not a fighter here. You're not going to get your Arcana.
Yeah.
And then she just randomly just gets it, and she knows how to use her powers right away. It's like everyone else had to like go through like weeks or days to learn how to use their stuff. Like she gets in, she's just like, boom. I'm like, that's just bad script writing right there. That's just really bad script writing. If they make a sequel, will I watch it? Of course I fucking will. But I'm definitely not gonna have any fucking like any remote high hopes for that film. It's not the worst films of the year because it still is Mortal Kombat. It's still fighting and it still was enjoyable in respects. Oh my god, that movie was my most disappointing film of the year. That's our show. These are gonna be long. These are gonna be long videos. They were long last year too, because we have a lot to talk about. And I'm sure what's funny is that this is always the longest one. The best and most surprising. We're like, we really liked it. It's good, and then we move on to the next thing. These are the ones that it takes.
You tend to get more passionate about the ones you've done.
Yes, because the ones that we are very angry about. So most surprising and best films of the year is definitely probably not going to be nearly as long. Most anticipated, I guess it just kind of depends on how many movies we talk about. But I still don't feel like that one's going to be nearly as long. But we hope you guys enjoyed this video where we talked about the movies that we just fucking hated and were disappointed with. This to me is our more fun one because
this is our therapy episode.
Exactly. This is our like de-stressing and getting
we get to purge
out
it from the year and go on.
Yes, we need to get all this out of us so that way we can appreciate 2022. If you guys did like this video, go and hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos pop up on the Movie Crusaders. And of course, we're going to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Like I said, coming up next, my most recent review dump where I talked about the last 5 movies of 2021. It came out today. Well, obviously, this is not going to come out today because it takes forever to edit this, especially this video. But it just came out. And then, like I said, you and I will be having our most surprising and best films of the year still to come out. And, of course, our most anticipated 2022. Besides that, it'll probably be have a nice 2-3 weeks off because I cannot think of when the next actual worthwhile movie comes out in January.
The next major movie coming out, I think, is Scream.
It's the 14th,
Scream,
right? Yeah, it's like mid-January, if not the end of January. So we'll probably take like a nice 2-3 week break. But Brian and I do have some ideas coming up for shows. Probably won't be until February before we do our first one that we're discussing. But we're still kind of figuring out what we want to do and how we're going to do certain things. But like I said, we got 2 more videos coming out where we talk about more movies. So you guys are going to get plenty of us here in the next week or so. But we hope you guys enjoy this. And until next time, in case we don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.